Hey, Prime members, you can listen to Crime and Sports early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the app today.
In the depths of an Atlanta forest, a clash between activists and authorities ends in tragedy. I'm Matthew Scher, and on my new podcast, We Came to the Forest, we expose the hidden truths behind a shootout that left one activist dead and countless lives forever changed. Binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest ad-free on Wondery Plus.
And welcome to Crime and Sports.
Yay!
Oh, yay indeed, Jimmy. Yay indeed. My name is James Petrogallo. I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Jimmy Wissman.
Thank you, folks, so much for joining us today on another wild, crazy, and this could be the craziest one we've ever done, case-wise. It's one that we've gone back and forth saying we were not gonna do, and then we were like, oh, we'll do it as a bonus episode, or we'll do whatever. But you know what? Everyone on Earth has done it, and that's why we've avoided it, just because it's been done. I hate to say it, but it's been done to death, and we didn't want to. We like to find the guys last week that you never heard of that went in and beat up a high school girl in the gym for no reason. You're like, who the hell is that guy?
So much more fun.
Yeah, or a guy who's real famous, and you're like, that guy got arrested a whole bunch? I didn't know that. Like, shit like that. Those are fun. And this one will be crazy because we'll do it a little bit of a different angle than other people do it, obviously. But we're going to talk about Chris Benoit today.
All
and
right.
His, don't do a my kind of guy on this one because he's certainly not your kind of guy.
Kind of a monster.
Really anybody's kind of guy after what he did. Really the most reprehensible. He makes OJ look like a role model at this point. Like it's at least there, he didn't pile on his fucking child on top of her. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So
that's
not that he's. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, that was sarcastic. OJ killed his wife and not a role model. But anyway, we will get to that quickly at the top of the show here. Thank you for everything. Your reviews count, by the way, whichever app you're listening on. Give us 5 stars. It does help out. Say something nice if you can, whatever the hell you want. But it does help. Thank you for doing that. It really, really it warms our heart. On top of that, go to shutupandgivememurder.com right now. Not only will you find all the merchandise and everything like that, but you will find tickets to live shows on there. And, we've got all sorts of stuff coming up. Small Town Murder coming up July 15th in New Orleans, so get your tickets to that. There's still tickets to the Crime and Sports show in Sacramento, live Crime and Sports, Sacramento, on it's in August at some point at the Ace of Spades.
Closing in on it.
Get your tickets there.
12th,
there you go. Get your tickets there. Yeah. Come see us. There's a Small Town Murder the same night, so that's sold out, though. And Small Town Murder people should buy tickets to that. I don't know. Either way, get your tickets. Come out to that because we're not. It's not like a college lecture. This is. We have pictures and we're comics, so we are gonna kick you in the collective genitalia for the entire length of the show with laughter. That's a promise. Sore genitalia when you leave from repetitive kicking with laughter. So anyway, patreon.com/crime and sports is where you get all of the bonus stuff. And my goodness, are we rich and ripe with it this week coming up. First of all, for Crime and Sports, we're going to kind of piggyback on this episode with, there's a wrestler named Billy Jack Haynes, and he is out of his mind, batshit bonkers, and he does 2-hour-long shoot interviews where he just lets it fly, man. And we'll talk a little bit about him and what the hell's his problem is, and then we'll get into his gigantic Chris Benoit conspiracy theory he has, and I'm passionate isn't the word for it. I mean, psychopathic. You can see all the whites of his eyes around his pupils, that kind of crazy. It's wild. We'll talk about that.
Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams kind of conspiracy?
No, this is way down the line more than that. This is crazy shit. And then for Small Town Murder, we are going to talk about a terrible person, one of the worst. Basically, I've been calling him Canadian BTK. We're going to talk about Russell Williams, the high-ranking, we know about him. He's the guy, high-ranking military officer.
Psycho.
And he had the exact same pictures that BTK had. He broke into women's homes. He killed them in horrible ways. We're going to talk about his interrogation because it's one of the most amazing things ever. It's amazing. We're going to talk all about that.
pretty good.
It's crazy. So check all that out. Patreon.com/crime and sports. And of course, you will get a shout out at the end of the show because God damn it, we appreciate you. So
sure do.
We are going to do that. Jimmy's going to mispronounce your name terribly while trying to get it correct. Now, here we go. That said, let's get into this. Oh, yeah, PayPal. It's crimeandsports@gmail.com if you want to do that. You also got a shout out. Shout out. Also shout out. So anyway, let's get into this. Now, before I start this out, I would like to say something at the top of the show because Chris Benoit is one of those people that no matter what you say his name, people go like it's an automatic, they wince away from it. I do want to say this. They wince away from saying anything positive about anything he ever did in his entire life. You know what I mean? Like, and on Crime and Sports.
Like he flushed all of it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like WWE, as we'll talk about, said we'll never mention him again. They scrubbed him from everything that it's ever been on. Like, I mean, which is understandable. This is what I'm saying. So let me just do this here. We're going to talk about at some point in this, at certain points, what a great wrestler he is, because he's fucking fantastic, and that might upset some people, and that's understandable. But hear us out. We're doing this not to honor him. That's not how that goes. But when someone who has any cultural relevance does anything, the impulse is that we all have is to throw everything they've ever done in the garbage with them. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because otherwise it glorifies the person. But it's one thing I really disagree with. I don't agree with that. You know what I mean? I don't, because whether it's Bill Cosby himself, the special, not just Bill Cosby,
It's genius. Yeah.
That when I was a kid coming up, or 50 giant Michael Jackson fucking hits, or whether you went to see Space Jam with your mom when you were a kid, and then afterwards in the mall you bought I Believe I Can Fly and listened to it in the fucking car on the way home and all that shit, or Mark Chmura catching touchdowns for the Packers. Or maybe you watched a pay-per-view down in your parents' basement on some shit night where you snuck a couple of your dad's beers with your buddy and you saw Chris Benoit have a great match and you guys went, oh, shit. And it's a memory you have. Those things they did, music, comedy, not the crimes, those things, as soon as they did those things that we like, they didn't belong to that person anymore. They're ours now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're ours. Our memories are attached to songs that we sang along with, jokes that we laughed about, repeat to our friends, a big wrestling match with your friend watching pizza. Those people themselves can get fucked, but they can't that doesn't take away what they did from us. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not.
I'm just glad that Epstein never made a great movie.
Thank fuck that Epstein didn't put out like a hot album. There was like 5 bangers on that Epstein album, and I'm not going to lie. I mean, I hate the guy, but Jesus, that thing, it's bullshit proof, that album, man. I'm sorry. That's why they called it bullshit proof. But
R. Kelly wrote almost every R&B song in the 90s. Almost all.
Oh, yeah, he wrote everything. That's what I mean. If you don't want R. Kelly, you just have to flush the 90s down the toilet, R&B style. That's what I mean. So what we're doing, anytime we're talking about wrestling, it's an indulgence of memories, not an endorsement of people or actions. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. If you don't like it, go fuck yourselves. That's the end of that. Tried to be eloquent, and then if otherwise, he ticks.
He can do great things and then ruin it all with a terrible event, but it doesn't
very easily.
It doesn't make what he did less fucking impressive.
No, So that's what we'll talk about. And he's born in Montreal. I'm sorry, he's born in Montreal. Huh? Yeah. Oh, he's Canadian all the way. His nickname's the Canadian Crippler.
Yeah, that would make sense.
That's his nickname.
I thought maybe he just crippled Canadians only.
He hates Canadians is the thing. He says, I will only fight Canadians, and when I do, they're going to end up in wheelchairs. That's how I operate.
Cripple them all.
No, I have nothing against the Japanese. I have nothing against Mexicans or none of that shit. Europeans of any kind. Very, very good with black people, but God damn it, I'll tell you something.
I'm tired of your loonies and toonies.
Not having it from these fucking Canucks. It's not going to work. So you can take your maple leaf and wipe your asses with it. Fuck you. So he was born in Montreal. His parents' names are Michael and Margaret Benoit. So he's not a junior. He's
a French Canadian.
He's a French. Well, yeah, but I don't think they're Benoit. I mean, but they're not like he's not like a French speaker or anything like that. I think they've been there a couple generations, if you know what I mean. So he grew up in Edmonton anyway. So that's the opposite.
yeah.
That's way out west, oil fields. I mean,
Right.
you know, that's kind of rugged country out there. That's a lot of that. I've heard from comedians that have worked the comedy club in Edmonton that they're just like, it's just like oil field workers and shit. I mean, you got to really tailor your act. I mean, you got to go in there and be like, take everything nuanced out and just be like, fuck that pussy, right? And they'd fucking cheer. And, all right, whatever. That's
roughneck
great.
and on the nose.
Yeah, roughneck and on the nose. Yeah, whatever. Like, look up an old Tonight Show and take some Jay Leno jokes. They'll go for him if you throw like some fuck in there once in a while and put like, and
Just
then I
stagger 'em. Yeah.
and then I jizzed on her face like at the end of it, like, you know. Do like an old Clinton joke from the 90s that Leno did, and then add on, then I jizzed on her face at the end of it, and that'd be fine. So,
Stagger. Throw some nuance and then on
That's
the
all.
nose. Nuance on the nose, nuance.
it's
on
bob
the
and
nose.
weave. Bob and weave. That's what you got to do in comedy sometimes. Bob and weave. So he and anyway grows up in Edmonton is where he lives there the most of the time. He's got a sister as well, so it's him and his sister and his parents, and he's in Edmonton. He liked wrestling in Western Canada. That is where Stu Hart, Bret and Owen Hart's father, had his territory. So if you grew up in Edmonton, you saw Stampede Wrestling. I mean, that was the thing that came from there, other than the Oilers, you know. So you had that. So he, at 11, he started saw live shows, went to one live, which is that can be formative if you're a kid and you see something that you want to do in front of you. That might.
And wrestling specifically, because I mean, I liked wrestling as a kid, and I've watched it and I've enjoyed it. But then seeing that, was it TNA? No, it wasn't. It was just independent shit that came through town with Royce, and seeing that, I was
NWA. He was doing.
It's what it was
recently.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Royce is great, by the way. He's a great wrestler.
It is the most shocking thing to be able to. Everybody's bullshit with it's fake. I don't care.
Oh, it's still.
I don't care.
If me or you went in there, just without taking 10 million bumps first and took one move, we'd be in the fucking hospital. Number one, because you don't know how to take it. We don't know how to take it and not get hurt. And then number two, even if we took it perfectly, it would still fucking hurt us.
Yeah.
It hurts to get body slammed. The reason why these guys can do it and not be bruised and get up is because they do it 1,000 times first, and then you're callous to it. I mean, that's the way they do it.
And seeing it live is magical. I can't say it any other way. It's fucking magical.
I grew up in the Northeast, obviously, went and watched WWF, and that was one thing. I loved wrestling and was a huge fan, but the first fucking time I went and saw it at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, and you could see the guys, I went, holy shit, I'll never be that big. Like, these guys,
awesome. Yeah.
I'll never be that. These guys are humongous. They're all 6'8". They're all 200. Fuck, that's what they looked like when I was 9, It was like, wow, these guys are huge.
And the emotion they're baiting out of you, I assure you, you'll give it. Whether it's them to be hated or them to be the hero, whatever emotion they are set to bait out of you, they'll get it. I was furious. I hated a man.
Absolutely.
So much.
For no reason. You don't know him.
I don't know him from
That
anything.
means he's very good at his job.
Hated him.
That means he's great. He knows he's great at his job. Knows exactly what he's fucking doing. That's
So
good shit. So, he started showing up as a kid, and this is how a lot of kids get started in wrestling back in the day. Not now. Nowadays, it's a completely different thing. But back in the day, with these territories, little kids would show up, and they'd go, well, can I do something? And they go, go set up 100 fucking chairs. That's what we need you to do. And they give the kid $5 or something, but the kid's back. He's in the group now. He's backstage now, and he's around people. I mean, Jim Cornette took pictures. Everybody, this one set up chairs. That setting up chairs is the one that they all do in the beginning, because that's something that you don't need to have skill to do it. Nope. Set up those chairs. See that line? Fucking chairs in a line like that. There's tape on the floor.
Out of the top. It's super easy.
That's it. Boom, boom, boom. It's just a physical labor job. They can give them a few bucks, and the kids are happy to do it. So it's one of those things. That's how they get in the business, and that's what he did with Stampede at Kinsman Fieldhouse in Edmonton. He would do that, and it sounds glorious and glamorous, doesn't it?
Sounds like it smells like beer.
Oh, it definitely smells like beer. It smells like beer and crude oil somehow. I don't know how.
You know that smell after our shows when they're pushing beer cans with a push broom?
Yeah, when they've cleared the chair. When it's not, we have three, but like once in a while we do a comedy club, and that's a different thing. But like that has its own smell. But like when we either theater-wise, we either do like set theaters with seats that have been there for 100 years, and it's that, or it's like a rock club that normally doesn't do chairs.
That's the one.
And they brought chairs in, and then 5 minutes after we're done doing our show, the chairs are all gone, and there's just this wide open floor of beer puddles, essentially.
That's being pushed. The puddle dries as they push it with the broom.
Take a push broom, and they're just like
even it out.
Yeah, nobody knows the trouble I've seen.
That stick sound when you walk over it is so gross.
My sorrow. You're pushing the broom behind it. That's what it feels like.
I can smell your sorrow, sir. That is musty.
It's sad. It's a sad smell. It really is. You won't have to smell it if you come to a live show. That's only after they clear the chairs that smell it.
It's when the show's done. That's when the smell comes up.
Yeah, you'll be gone. And once they push that push broom in, and it stirs up the hornet's nest. It angers the hive a little bit, and then it just
it rehydrates the old beer from the last show.
Oh yeah. The stuff that was there to begin with.
It's gross.
So anyway, Chris does this. It must smell worse here, I assume, because they probably have like stockyard exhibits and shit on the off nights when it's not wrestling. So when he's 13, he gets to meet. He's 13. It's 1980. He gets to meet the Dynamite Kid. Okay. Now we've talked about Dynamite Kid a few times, but Dynamite Kid is Chris's idol, and Dynamite Kid is a lot of people's idol. He's known as an innovator of a style, that high impact top rope.
Yeah, high-flying shit.
That snap suplex that Benoit does, where he gets a guy and does it real fast. That's Dynamite Kid tribute. That's him. He did that.
Rey Mysterio shit.
Well, that's more lucha shit. This is more high impact stuff. Like, not that the lucha shit's bad, but that's just a different style. This is like Japanese style back then up a notch. It's the chops are fucking hard. Everything's hard hitting. He diving headbutt from the top rope. That was Dynamite's move, was the swan. He'd dive off the top rope with the fucking headbutt. That was Benoit's move as well, the swan dive off the top rope. Benoit completely modeled himself after Dynamite Kid, because Dynamite is tiny. That's the thing about Dynamite. Benoit, Rey Mysterio size, but he just put on a shitload. He jacked himself up with 75 pounds of steroids. Yeah. Dynamite was a tiny, tiny little guy that put a shitload of weight on with steroids and then has great athleticism and balls of fucking steel. And he did shit that no one else was doing back then. And he had these great matches. And Chris was doing the same thing. He idolized Dynamite. It's that sacrifice your body style. Yeah. But Dynamite was in a wheelchair by the time he was 37, so maybe that's not the guy to idolize. Literally. His career by 30, his career was done, and he was doing independent show, and he was one of the biggest stars in the world from 20 to 30, and then it just all fell apart, and then by 37, he was on the dole in England in a wheelchair. Literally, that's what he was doing. I mean, he's not good life like that. Just steroids and beating the shit out of your body without any regard for it. Yeah, he's British, yeah. But he is Davey Boy Smith's cousin. Davey Boy Smith is married to Bret Hart's sister. Oh. Chris Benoit he's going to end up training here. So this is all a big, the Canadian wrestling fraternity is very tight-knit. Anybody from Canada, it's like that in every industry, actually, because I knew a Canadian actor, and he knew every Canadian actor on the face of the earth.
If you saw comedy's that way. All Canadian
they all know each
other. Yeah.
This guy, we'd be watching a movie. I'd be like, "Oh, this guy's pretty good," and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know him." We're like, "What?" And he'd be like, "Oh, he's from fucking Calgary." Yeah, I know him. He's from Calgary. Yeah, we met at the whatever. I'm like, "How the fuck do you know every Canadian?" You guys
You're not from Calgary.
Yeah, and he wasn't. That was the thing. Right. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, we met at a thing in Canada. Some actors." I'm like, "Okay, sure." So 13 years old, he knew he loved Dynamite. He wanted to be Dynamite. He was all about Dynamite. He's tiny too. Benoit is your size, but skinny.
Is that right?
Yeah, Benoit he says 5'8", but you say 5'8" too, and I don't believe either one of you. I'll be fucking honest with you.
My ID says 5'9".
Yeah, your ID can say 6'3". It doesn't matter.
James, I've never written 5'9" in my life.
That's hilarious.
Never once.
I love how they did that to you. We've talked about that before. It always cracks me up when you say that. You're like, I never told them this. They're trying to help me out here.
Yeah, they're just stretching me, trying to help me impress women.
Hey, look, no, I swear I'm 5'9". So, but that is when Chris wants to become a wrestler. We're at 13, like he's going to try to get in like the late 80s. This is the land of the giants time. Yeah. Everybody's huge. You got to be 6'5", fucking 280 pounds, either that or you know.
The two biggest, one of them's name is The Giant, and the other one isn't much
Hulk.
shorter.
His name is Hulk. No one's going to look at Chris Benoit and go, ooh, Hulk. You know what I mean? He's tiny. He's a tiny little man without the steroids, and he jacks himself up full of steroids, though.
Yeah.
He'll be up over 225 at a lot of points in his career. And he looks
5'8".
Well, yeah, and he looks, everything on him is just poof. His thighs are fucking thick, and he's just fucking jacked, and he's very stiff walking and everything, but very agile, too, an amazing worker. Like, he really is a terrific... Chris Benoit, the one that you cannot say a negative word about his wrestling, really. Although, here's one thing about Chris. You look at him and you go, okay, tiny guy, skinny without the steroids, not a handsome man.
No.
You've seen him. Not an attractive man, not a handsome man. Terrible talker. I mean, people say like Bret Hart wasn't a good talker, guys like that. Chris can't get a fucking point across like talking. He is an awful fucking promo. I mean, when he just says like 3 words and then makes the cut in his throat motion, that's all he needed to do, because anything more than that, you're like, does he have shit in his mouth? What is he doing? He talks like this, and he's very like, he's hard to understand, and he's grumbly, and you can tell he's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like Ric Flair looks like he could be like, whoa, I'm going to beat this guy over at this arena. And, oh, shit, you see the Pittsburgh Pirates game last night? Oh, that 9th inning was great. Anyway, back to this guy. Like, he can just, you know what I mean? Like, Benoit is not like that. Over in his head, he's going, this, and this. That's what I'm saying. And then he gets out there uncomfortably, stiffly, says it angrily, and then walks away. That's his whole deal.
That's the reason they gave Razor Ramon AO to say, because there's no reason to listen to any more from that guy.
Well, no, Scott Hall can talk his ass off, though. He was great at that.
You think that guy could talk?
Oh, that he's known as one of the best.
A fucking word that guy's saying.
Oh, when he's doing that accent for Razor Ramon. Yeah. He's doing a Scarface accent. That was what he was a Scarface.
Word the guy's saying.
No, like later on in WCW, like he's a very clever promo. He's pretty good actually. He's a real good wise ass. He's good. He is a good promo. Him and Nash could both talk some shit. It was pretty nice.
And Chris can't do that. He's incapable.
He's incapable of it. Like later on, he'll be in WCW and they'll put him in the Four Horsemen. And it's like good, because if he's in a group, he can just stand behind Ric Flair and look tough and let Ric Flair talk the shit. Because
and then do a throat slash.
That's it. You be like the Arn Anderson kind of guy, and then everybody else you'll talk, because you're not good at it. He's really not. He's terrible. So you look at all that and you go, not going to be champion of the world, this guy. Right. If anything, maybe a jobber or somebody that never talks, never gets interviewed, and is too tiny to look like a threat.
Very little marketable anything about him.
Not a lot. And somehow from that, he became, through sheer will, and honestly, that's one thing you have to say about the guy, through sheer will and intensity and want to succeed, he fucking became champion in both of the major wrestling organizations somehow. So you got to, that's one thing you have to say, like his story right up until a certain day, his story is like you would tell that to a kid. Maybe not do this in wrestling because look at his health problems, but whatever you want to do, if you work that hard at it, you're going to have a better shot at it than if you don't. You know what I mean? Like that guy should not be where he is, and he's there because he wanted it that bad.
Is it because it's easy to root for a guy that has nothing? You know what I mean? Apart from, I mean, obviously he's a good wrestler, but in the ring, that, you know what I mean? Because he's got his face is awful. He's got so much face.
In the ring, though, when you're watching him, he's so intense. Everything he does is 100%. It's hard. It's fast. He looks like he's going after it. And he's small, so it's very hard not to root for a guy like that.
Right. This underdog.
He's the guy who'll run into the wall in baseball to catch the ball. You know what I mean? He's that guy. And you always root for that guy. You just do, because he's giving it all up for you. You know,
he's that's your fan favorite.
That's the way you're looking at it. This guy's working his ass off in there for me. So, I mean, he wins over the ECW fans later, and that's not fucking easy to do. Sure. And he does it. So, anyway, he. To tell you his intensity, at one point later on, and this was in the Dark Side of the Ring special from Chris Benoit, he was talking, or not from Chris Benoit, from Chris Jericho talking about it. He talked about one time in Japan, they had a match, and Chris blew a spot a little bit. Yeah. Not even that much to where the audience really probably noticed, but just like fuck something up slightly. Sure. Uh-huh. And he said after the match, he goes in the back and Chris is doing these squats. And he's like, we just did a long match. Like, what the fuck are you doing squats for? I'm like, bro, what are you doing? And he said, I fucked up that move. I disgraced myself, and I need to do 500 squats to make up for it. So... Was it a squats, whatever muscles require your squats? Was that what the muscle that fucked up? No. He just fucked up a kick and made it look not as good as it should have. All right. That's all. I'm not punish myself. But it's just to punish myself. Yeah. But that's how intense he is, and that's how you have to be if you're going to be a guy with nothing that should work and make it work. You know, you have to take every advantage there is. So, Sergeant, train yourself when you make mistakes. That's all you can do. So anyway, he goes on. He ends up training with Stampede, which is the dungeon. So Chris is a graduate of the dungeon. He's had his fucking been stretched every which way by Stu Hart, and eating food with cat shit in it. Yep, cat shit food. He's eating it all. Cat shit fucking sandwiches. Cat shit omelets. He's cat shit omelets. He's had it all. So. I'll have the cat shit Parmesan, please. Thank you. No, the hero. Yeah. No, the whole sandwich, not just a pile of it. Extra litter if you don't mind. Please. I like it crunchy. It's kind of like Bobby Flay puts panko fucking things, breadcrumbs on everything. It's a little crunchy. That's some flavor. Some tiny step. Yeah, it's some tiny step. If you don't have any panko in the house, you put some tiny step on there. Put a little fresh step in there, and no one will know the difference. On your mac and cheese, I hear it's wonderful. We don't need breadcrumbs on mac and cheese, by the way. Stop doing that. No, just bake it longer. Yeah, make it crunchy. That's what I mean. Bake the top crispy, make it crunchy. And that's what we need. Have a cheese combination that can withstand that level of baking and still be moist, and then you got something. Otherwise, that's where you're at. Yeah. Fuck you. So, bet you never thought you'd get a mac and cheese fucking Don't rotten my mac and cheese. No. Dead kids and mac and cheese is what you call this episode. So he's going, and this is rough. Edmonton, the Calgary territory is where it was based out of, is known as the hardest and most dangerous territory to do the road. These are long trips. These Canadian towns in Western Canada are not close to each other. Far between, yeah. Long car rides in vans, and it's Canada. So Western Canada, 6 months out of the year, more than that, everything's frozen. It's snowing. The weather's terrible. There's fucking moose and elk walking around across the road. Right? Out here, I don't think it might be some hills. The Rockies stretch up there, right? Or what is that? Cascades? I don't know what the fuck is in Edmonton, and I'm not going to try to guess. I don't know. There's got to be mountains there. Sure. I think there's a lot of mountains. It's beautiful. It's like it's just like the U.S. Yeah. It's like Aspen, flat basically. Anything west of Colorado is just mountains. It's all mountains. It's all mountains, goddammit. Doesn't that? What about Alaska? Because that has mountains. Don't that stretch up? Weren't they originally part of that when everything was crunched together? I'm not going to talk about this, damn it. No, we're not getting sidetracked with mountain talk. We've had river talk before. Because I'm so tempted. You know me. We'll sit here and talk about geography for a half hour. No one wants to hear that bullshit. West of Wyoming, I think. God damn it. No. So but I mean, that's what they're doing. They're driving in these vans. It's tough. Guys, so many guys have died in car accidents up there in the winter. It's fucking rough. Had terrible car accidents and everything. But he didn't care, though. He was a wrestler, and he was totally into it. Everybody said he was like just mini Dynamite Kid, or not even mini, but Dynamite Jr. He just wrestled exactly like him. He's like a little clone of him, diving off the top rope, snap suplexes, the whole shit. So he ended up moving to Japan for a year in 1987. Oh. And Dynamite Kid was a giant star in Japan. So this is kind of one of those things like in Japan, they don't care how big you are.
Yeah.
None of that shit matters there. It matters for heels sometimes because they love to boo a giant American, or did back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing. Hulk Hogan was a heel in Japan in the 80s when he was the biggest baby face in the world in the United States. So anyway, he's Benoit, though, they appreciate style, they appreciate work rate, they appreciate intensity over there. Yeah. So, and they appreciate everything has to look really real, which is what Chris Benoit is really good at, making everything look really real. So that's one of those deals. So Japan fits him. But he goes over and does the whole dojo thing.
What is that?
These Japanese wrestlers, it's like a torture system they have where you come in there, you're the low man on the totem pole. They teach you to do all this shit, but you have to you're assigned to somebody to do their laundry and all that kind of shit. You have
hazing?
It's just outright open hazing that you absolutely have to be okay with. And it's part of it. They beat you, they do terrible shit to you. Guys have died over there in those fucking rituals. So it's a lot, man. It's a lot. So, and also he's a foreigner, so they're not any nicer to him than they're not as nice to him as they are to anybody else. You know what I mean? He gets it as bad as anybody. So it's pretty bad for him over there, but he ends up getting booked in New Japan, which is a big deal. He's the Pegasus Kid over there. Yikes. They put him under a mask. That's why. So I don't know if they're, I don't know. I guess they want, who knows what that is in Japanese, though. That's the other thing.
That's a good point. It could be a cat.
It could be, it could be Hello Kitty. We don't have any fucking idea. But he, I don't know if they were trying to make him Japanese, because if he's under a mask, who knows what he is, type of thing. I don't know. He has blue eyes, though, so that's kind of a giveaway.
Is it?
You know a lot of Japanese people with blue eyes? Maybe.
I don't know. I
could be ignorant on this. True. That is true. I don't know a ton of Japanese people. Maybe a lot of them have blue eyes. A lot of Japanese people with blue eyes. Yeah, thinking about it, I'm like, I don't know how many Japanese people I know. I could be completely off here.
Yeah.
So,
big news. Wayfair's President's Day clearance is on now. And these are big deals, like Wayfair's best deals since Black Friday. Right now through February 18th, you can score up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair. Did we mention there's free and easy delivery straight to your door? There may even be some flash deals popping up, too. You'll just have to shop and see. So don't wait. Shop Wayfair's President's Day clearance today through February 18th at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
A few miles from the glass spires of Midtown Atlanta lies the South River Forest. In 2021 and 2022, the woods became a home to activists from all over the country who gathered to stop the nearby construction of a massive new police training facility, nicknamed Cop City.
At approximately 9 o'clock this morning, as law enforcement was moving through various sectors of the property, an individual, without warning, shot a Georgia State Patrol trooper.
This is We Came to the Forest, a story about resistance.
The abolitionist mission isn't done until every prison is empty and shut down.
Love and fellowship.
It was probably the happiest I've ever been in my life.
And the lengths we'll go to protect the things we hold closest to our hearts. Follow We Came to the Forest on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus.
Either way, he does very well over there. He wins the Super J Cup twice, which is their junior heavyweight division tournament deal. It's a big fucking deal over there. He does some time wrestles in Germany a little bit while he's also wrestling in WCW in the late 80s after Ted Turner bought it. He meets his first wife. He has a first wife in Germany, in Bremen, Germany in 1991. He marries this woman.
Is she an American woman or a German lady?
I think she's a German lady. Her name's Martina, which sounds German as well. And she ends up coming back over here with him. They'll have 2 kids, David and Megan, from this relationship. And later on, they live in Canada. He's living in Canada at this point. And the kids and the wife seem to stay in Canada as Chris goes other places.
Got it.
Seems the way how that works. So he develops his finishing move, which is the Crippler Crossface. That's the name of it, because he's the Canadian Crippler. So here is how he describes it. Quote, basically, this is a submission move where I'll ride the guy down by his arm, that sounds bad, and wrap my hands and lock my hands around his face as I pull back as hard as I can on his head. It's a really devastating submission move when applied correctly, but you get a lot of these kids in the backyard that watch us doing it and have no training and no experience and do not have any idea of how to apply the hold. Yeah, okay. It's one of those holds that you definitely are going to put on your friend.
Yeah.
Like,
isn't the camel clutch kind of similar?
Camel clutch is like, well, yeah, it's similar, but you're like, camel clutch, you're straddling the guy's back.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? That looks like you're going to come up and fuck him, but then you move up a little higher to the back, sit down on the small of the back, pull up on the chin. Right. This is you're on the ground next to him.
Next to him? Okay.
Pulling on his face while your body weight is on like his body.
On like his shoulder?
On his back while you're like basically trying to pop his head off.
Got it.
So this is a move. If one of your friends is just laying there watching TV and you're all hanging out, you're going to come up behind him and immediately apply it and cause an injury that he'll still feel when he's 53 years old.
Yeah.
He'll be trying to play with his grandkids. He'll be like, goddamn fucking Timmy fucking Watkins when I was 12. God damn it, I'd like to kick him in the balls.
Under the sink, fixing the fucking disposal.
Jesus.
And you get a stinger and can't feel your arm for a week.
Fuck, I wish he wouldn't have died of prostate cancer 5 years ago because I'd love to go over, kick his ass.
Yeah, right in the population exploder.
You know it, man. Right there. Pow. So, Chris Jericho describing his personality, because Chris Jericho is pretty close to him, another fellow Canadian. So, Chris Jericho described Benoit such, thusly, quote, almost a tale of two cities, a tale of two people. There is the Chris Benoit that had these horrendous acts of extreme psychopathic lunacy in the last couple days of his life, and then there's the Chris Benoit that I myself traveled with, lived with, and said I love you to on many occasions. He was my mentor. He's one of my best friends, and he's a brother to me in so many ways. And the 15 years I knew him, and the 2 days he decided to do these horrible, horrible acts, it's kind of hard to discern the two. And that's why we have to figure out what would cause such a mild-mannered, polite, influential, tremendous person and performer to do such things. Is he
saying he never saw it ever until...
Nobody did. Wow. Nobody did.
Wow.
No, when I say nobody. Everybody was like, not him? No, that's the last person ever. You know what I mean? It's very strange, and that's why we'll get into possible causes. Obviously, we're not doctors, so it'd be difficult, but there's a lot of evidence here. So Jericho also called Benoit a very quiet man, but not a recluse and not a hermit, just quiet. He minded his own business, but he was always around. If there was a joke, he would laugh. In all the years I was with him, I never once saw anything. If there was a fight, if I went nuts and wanted to beat somebody up, he was the guy who would contain me. And a lot of people can tell you that. Mm-hmm. Benoit doesn't have no temper. He's not considered one of those guys. He's not one of those guys that gets angry.
Even-keeled usually.
Even-keeled guy. That's how he's all business. Everybody says he's all fucking business. He's polite and fine to everybody else. The people he's close to, he's open with and fine with, but he's not close to a ton of people. He keeps a tight circle.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And that's how a lot of wrestlers who came up in the business back in the day were. You know what I mean? I don't know if he might be one of these people too at the time that doesn't have the energy to be phony with people and be like overly like, if I like you, I really like you and we'll talk. But if I don't really know you that well or we're not real tight, I'll talk to you for 2 minutes and that's that.
Yeah. And I don't have time to form a new friendship. I got to get back to kicking my own ass for fucking up that leg lock.
That's the thing. I got more squats to do. More squat. And on top of that, you leave your friends all the time in wrestling too. So it's hard. So anyway, Dave Meltzer, who is the Wrestling Observer author, and we've talked about him a lot, he writes the quote-unquote dirt sheet of wrestling that he has all the inside info, and he's usually pretty correct on like rumor-type shit and stuff like that. So he says that he had an internet radio show in 1999, and Benoit was his first guest on the air.
Wow.
And he said, Chris was uncomfortable and distant, but he was very nice and a good listener to those he knew. I think he was someone who was always thinking and a very private person. He definitely needed to be by himself and didn't like being social at times. He internalized a lot. He was definitely not a dumb jock type.
Okay.
So everybody kind of says that about him. He's not really, because he didn't come up in team sports or anything like that. He put chairs out when he was 11, and he's been in wrestling ever since. So
fascinating.
it's a different type of thing. It's almost like a carny or a comedian or some like vaudeville actor back in the day going from town to town.
And also introspective. Is that what he's saying? He's a thinker?
I don't think he's a thinker, but he's not. He's just not one of those guys who's just like this big gregarious locker room guy. Like, hey, what's up, guys? Let's pound some beers. And, he's just, that's not his type. He's not that kind of guy. He's quiet, which a lot of times quiet people, even if they're not thinkers, give you the impression that they're thinkers and they're like pondering and that's why they're quiet when they might just be. All right. They might just be thinking, duh, as they fucking stare.
I'm pondering shit like, how'd they get that chandelier up there?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That might be the thought process. And you're like, God, this guy really looks like he's...
Boy, is he thoughtful.
Deep think. I wonder if is he going to solve the Middle East? I think he's going to solve it. I think he's going to bring them to the table finally. I really do. I think it's going to happen.
I'm thinking things like, how do they change the bulbs in that?
Oh, wow. Both countries are now going to have the same flag with the two countries' flags sewn together. That's amazing. Who would have thought?
That's where I'm at.
Wow. He solved it.
I'm also thinking things like, how do they just know how to do this? How does everybody just know?
How do lights work? How do lights work? That's weird. I've actually sat on like these chairs sometimes when we're at like shows, and I've thought, there's this factory somewhere. Like if you wanted to make this chair, you go, all right, and make this chair. But you have to think about it. You have to make machines that can specifically fucking make the metal into that chair. Like, imagine doing that. You have to figure out how that works, formulate all of that. I want the chair to be like this. They have to make the machine. That sounds so complicated. I'm never making a chair.
Yeah.
See, that's why we're not smart. So
that's been my whole life. I often wonder, how the fuck do people get into college? How do you do that? Where do you
never
go?
Knew. Yeah.
I don't know.
I've told you that before. I remember tons of times I'm like, I don't even know where the applications were. I didn't know where I thought about college, and then I thought, literally, I went, I don't know where those applications are. And I just stopped. I didn't ask anybody where the applications were. I just said, I don't know how you do that. And then I didn't do it.
But even if there is, is it a separate application for each place? Or do you just like send it off to like the draft guy and just like pick?
3 letters for you, Jimmy. GED. That's. Do I need a big medallion in gold and diamonds in my chest? I don't know shit about this.
I've done so many things in my life where I'm just like, I don't know how everybody knew to do that. How did you guys do it?
I don't know. People used to get places. I can't even figure that out. So.
Yeah, with like a giant map. Like, how do you even... Like, do you sprawl it out? How do you know where you are?
Yeah, you think texting and driving is dangerous? Try looking at a fucking map that's 6 foot by 6 foot that's on your lap in the car, getting in front of you on the windshield. So, yeah, I don't get it.
People do things.
I don't know how anybody does anything, to be honest with you.
That's where I'm at.
I don't know anything. So, really
my eyes are swirling. That's when I need help. Don't think that I'm thinking. I need help.
He's lost. So that's how he is, I guess. We don't know whether he's introspective or if he's just kind of, we have no idea. He's one of those guys. In WCW, he becomes a very big fan favorite. He's a guy that the Office never wanted to push this guy. The Office never said, man, this guy's going to be a star. We're going to do something with him. Everything they did with him was grudgingly because he is not what they want. No, the way WCW would work and the way a lot of these companies would work is the way management would think is, and I'm not talking all the wrestling guys, but kind of the way it was structured was, let's say you were a star somewhere else and we signed you from WWF and we gave you $750,000 a year.
Okay.
And the fans aren't doing shit for you. They don't care about you. There's no big reaction. Now you fight Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit makes $120,000 a year.
Right.
He's not beating you.
Right.
Because they have all this money in you, so you're going to be a star. If he beats you, now you're garbage, and now they're paying you $750,000 a year to be garbage.
For nothing, right.
For nothing. So the way that works is now Chris Benoit always gets beat by that guy, even if he's a lot better than him. Okay. That's how wrestling works. So, it's hard. That's why it's hard to move up unless somebody pegs you as a star. It's really hard to trudge your way through that. You know what I mean? And come up on something. So that's
Yeah, so you can't it's different from every other thing because you can't succeed in the ring and then therefore be paid because you have to do whatever they tell you to do.
Exactly. If you're a running back, they put you in and you run for fucking 180 yards a game. They
Guess who's going to get paid?
Those are statistics. You're getting paid, and if they don't pay, you'll go somewhere else. But these guys, this is like stand-up comedy. That's why I always say it's the same. You have a booker somewhere who's deciding what the people will like rather than letting the people tell you what they like.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. It's the same exact thing. So
not just what they'll like, but how much of it. Because
and people know
how many times have you seen the host kill the featured mediocre?
What I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
Or the feature destroy better than the headliner. That's what happens. It doesn't matter. None of it matters, which is why we do podcasts.
Yeah.
Because we were at that point where we were like, I'm not opening for someone I'm funnier than.
Right.
Fuck you.
I'm not gonna do this
I'm not doing this. I'm not going to make $50 while that guy makes $1,000 and I'm better than him. And the audience wants to talk to me
afterwards. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what it is. So that's what it's saying. Somebody with credits, the opener's never going to beat them.
Right.
Even if the audience wants them to. That's what I'm saying. They're not going to flip-flop you in the headliner because he was on a sitcom in 2008. So he gets to be the headliner, period.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how it works in wrestling, and that's how he is. And you should never trust a booker type like that, ever, by the way. If you're a comic out there, if you're anybody else, if you're not funny, you're not funny. But if you're crushing and all the other comics know you're funny and there's some booker that doesn't like you, fuck that person. Make them eat shit club. Later on.
Right.
Make them watch you in front of a sold out crowd and have them go, well, Jesus, I'm a moron, because we got to do that, and it was fantastic. It was one of the most glorious things ever to have that happen. So it's good. I mean, never mind. They told Louis Prima he couldn't be in the band playing trumpet. And he turned. You know who Louis Prima is?
No, but I'm already impressed. Go on.
Tell an Italian guy you don't know who Louis Prima is. It's like telling a Mexican chick you don't know who Selena is. It's the same thing. It's exactly. You know Selena. I know.
I only know.
You live in Arizona.
Yeah.
You know Selena.
Yeah, that's just. I know a
Trust
lot
me.
of Mexican culture, way more than I ever assumed I would ever know. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Louis Prima quickly he wrote songs that you know, put it that way. Mm-hmm. You know the song fucking Jump and Jive and Then You Wailing at It, the swing song that was the biggest song in the world in the 80s, or in the 90s? Well, he wrote that in like 1944.
Oh, no.
That's his song. Well, no, that was his song. You know the song, dun, 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 that's in every old clip of an old movie.
I think it's in The Mask.
Yeah, it's called Sing, Sing, Sing. That's his song. He wrote that in 1936. Like, he's this big star, and he was playing trumpet in New Orleans, and some band leader said, some band leader said, I don't like the way you play, and kicked him out and fired him, and then he became like a giant star for 50 years.
Then he became Louis Prima.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. See, that can happen. So anyway, that's what was going on in WCW. He's a preliminary guy, first couple matches. The fans love his match. Once Nitro starts up, I mean, he was part of the group, him, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, all these guys. We'll get to that because we're going to talk about ECW first. But he was one of the guys that, like, they would give them significant matches that would last through a commercial break in the beginning of the show to fill time.
Sure.
They would have 15-minute matches on television, and that were like balls out crazy matches that were really, really fun to watch. They were really good. So that's how he developed. But he went to ECW first. He was in ECW. ECW loved to book guys that were like kind of known in Japan and that sort of thing. And Benoit had the style that ECW liked. That's the Philadelphia kind of hardcore promotion there. He went there, and they loved his style. I mean, it was great. He had matches with Eddie Guerrero, and then Dean Malenko was there. All the guys that went to WCW, Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, fucking Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, they were all in ECW first, and then WCW took them. So
those are all the ones I love. That's the wrestling I really enjoy.
Because it's amazing to watch. They look, it looks real, and it looks like a ballet where people are beating the shit out of each other, which nobody else looks like that. Yeah. It looks so tough that it can't be choreographed, but it's so smooth that how did that guy hit that guy so hard and he still did that? It's impressive.
Eddie was great.
Eddie was great. Eddie is Chris's best friend, by the way, as we'll talk about. They'll grow to be super close. So Chris in ECW, he broke Sabu's neck. Actually, Sabu
Guerrero
is.
Did?
No. Chris Benoit broke Sabu's neck.
Yes. Yeah.
German suplexed him on his head and broke his neck. So that's where the Canadian Crippler, I believe, nickname came from. Was a
really?
Yeah, like part of that feud. Like I broke his neck. Now I'm the Canadian Crippler type of deal. So if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
How are you going to celebrate that?
Well, they always do that in wrestling.
Celebrating mistakes?
If you take whatever you're given in wrestling. Wrestling's like being a hitter in baseball. If the guy's throwing you this and that, you got to take what you're given. Take the walk if he throws you 4 balls. Don't force it. But Bruno Sammartino, Stan Hansen broke his neck by accident in the 70s, and their whole feud was I broke Bruno's neck. Look at that. I broke Steve Austin and Owen Hart. Owen Hart dropped him on Steve Austin on his fucking head, and his whole thing was I broke Steve Austin's neck. Look at that.
Jesus.
Greg the Hammer Valentine had a thing. I broke this guy's neck. It's every time someone's neck gets broken, they use it as part of the angle.
God damn it.
Because it's actually real.
Yeah.
A guy coming.
Yeah. Tell me it's fake. That guy's in a fucking wheelchair.
He comes out in a fucking halo with shit screwed into his head. You go, fuck, man, that's real. That's no shit stuff we're watching here.
He didn't do that to commit to the bit, for Christ's sake.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So once Nitro starts up, really, that's when Bischoff starts trying to get Eric Bischoff, the head of WCW, tries to start bringing in these guys that can fill time and have good TV, have exciting TV. And these guys can do it. This is this group, and then the Luchadors come in. You get Psychosis and Conan, all those guys come in. And anyway, that's part of that. So during this time, he crosses paths with a young lady here named Nancy.
Hell yeah.
Nancy Elizabeth Toffolini. Yeah. So, she's a nice Italian girl. Or Toffoloni. I said Toffolini. I apologize. It's Toffoloni. So
either way, both dishes are delicious.
Very, very. Yeah, I like eggplant in my Toffoloni. Yeah. So I like an eggplant
Toffolini's
Toffoloni.
Mostly cheese, so I'm into it.
What it is, you get the Toffoloni trio, and that's eggplant, chicken, and veal together. So, and we're not making fun of her name. Nancy is awesome, first of all. Nancy is one of the people in wrestling. You listen to a lot of shoot interviews, as I've done in the past. You come across, you get whatever shit there is to talk about a person, someone will say it. So everybody's got their, well, that guy did that, well, that guy, I like that guy, but type of deal. Nancy's one of the people that even before her death, never anybody ever had a bad word to say about her. She is just...
I feel like there's a lot of Nancys involved in wrestling. Is that
there
true?
Is a lot of. I think it's just that era of name.
That's wild.
A lot of women in the '60s got named Nancy, and she was born in '65. So I think maybe that's the deal. So she ended up. Nancy, like I said, everybody likes Nancy. She's nice. She's smart. She's very good at her job as well. She's a great fucking valet. She's an innovator. Like she opened up a different type of valet that didn't. Kevin Sullivan put her up to it, but she hit it out of the fucking park. I mean, someone gives you the ball, you still got to run with it. You know what I mean?
True.
So the valets up to that point were pretty women, or like the like squeaky, like like they like your stereotypical this bitchy woman because she's a heel, so everyone's good, like Sunny type of deal. You know what I mean? Right. Even though that was much later. It was that, or it was the Miss Elizabeth type, who was like the
sultry and
just like whatever Miss America type, you know what I mean? Whatever, girl next door Miss America deal. She comes on as like she's I'm a minion of the devil type shit because Kevin Sullivan is his whole gimmick is I'm the devil. Basically, that's his thing. I have this satanic group of people that's going to go after the good guy, and you know what I mean. We're gonna take him down to hell, and so he's got all these different people. I think that's where Luna Vachon started as well. Was in the beginning was part of his posse, and Nancy is a part of that posse as well. But before that, she's trying to get into modeling. Basically, she went to DeLand High School in Florida, and she got a job working for State Farm Insurance, answering the phone.
Oh, poor thing.
At a high school in Florida. Yeah. So she's married also, by the way, back in the day to Deus. D-A-U-S is the guy's name. Jim Deus. She's married to him, like right out of high school type of deal. So there's a guy who wants... There's a wrestling magazine called Wrestling All Stars, and they're looking for Guy wants somebody for the cover, and they find her, and they want to photograph her for just to be in the background of whatever. So they find her. She had been selling programs at the arena. She got into wrestling, selling programs. They would go, to the shows, and she would sell programs at Orlando shows, and then she ended up in. Okay, these wrestling magazines would have these sections called apartment wrestling. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay, it's super. I remember being creeped out by it as a kid. It's like in the back of the magazine, they'd have, all the wrestling from the deal and fake interviews and all the rankings and everything. And then in the back would be apartment wrestling. And that would be women, like.
Oh, no.
Like, the premise was, here are pictures of this event that went on, this private event. Private meaning, sexual. Yeah. This private event that took place just in some dude's, like in an apartment or like a living room somewhere, for a group of private clientele. So they're setting it up like a few wealthy wrestling fans paid all these women to catfight in front of them in their living room. That's how they're saying. We have exclusive photographs of it. Right. And meanwhile, it's just they have the girls go, okay, now you act like you got her like this. Okay, good. Now the next shot is like this. And, okay, now your shirt's half torn off because they're tearing each other's clothes off, and it's catfight shit. So it's really weird. Really weird stuff.
Implying that some titties fell out? Is that what
it is? Yeah. And in the mid like 86, 87, when I was very little and started getting into wrestling and buying the magazines, that shit, I was like very confused by it.
It's very weird, yeah.
Because I was like 8, 7. I didn't understand, like, I didn't get like that this was supposed to be sexual. So I was like, but it felt kind of dirty. It felt a little creepy.
It does, yeah. The aim feels like they're trying to grab a grimy person to get into wrestling now. Why would you want that? You're targeting a filthy fucking audience.
And then they would sell like, more pictures, and I guess maybe you could see like, more scantily clad. Like that was
yikes.
It was like, oh, this happened, and then you could order more shit there. But I remember being real creeped out by it. But that's what she did at first.
Really?
She did photo shoots for that. Because I mean, she didn't mind being in a bathing suit. She lives in Florida, so she was. And
she's not doing the wrestling. She's just doing some fucking advertisement for it.
Just posing, acting like they're wrestling, or basically it was them standing there like this, like I'm gonna get you with their like nails up, and air, or like one's got one like grabbed by the shoulders and her shirt stretched out, and the other one's like, oh no, my tit's gonna fall out, like it's shit like that. Stupid. Anybody who was jerking off to that too, that's a very sad existence. That is very sad. Very sad, sir. Your imagination should be able to be better than that, I would imagine.
You're an embarrassment.
Pick anything out and make it your imagination. So that's how she was doing it. Now, one of these shoots, she met Kevin Sullivan. I don't know if do you remember Kevin Sullivan from WCW? Very short guy, real short. He's like 5'7", has thighs that are like fucking 45 inches around. He's just this real like stock pluggy guy.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be like the devil, right? But he has the heaviest Boston accent ever. So he's like,
devil
I'll tell you something else there. And it's like, what?
It's an Irish Catholic guy from Boston. Is
Kevin Sullivan. Yeah, he's the devil. So it's very weird. So Sullivan recruits her to be in his devil entourage and gives her the name The Fallen Angel. So that's her deal. And she's got like makeup on, and she's like, goth kind of Satan hot, like she's got like scantily clad and sexy, if you're into that.
The fallen angel. The devil is also a fallen angel. So
she's fallen angel
if she's
also.
One also. There's the name's dumb, but I get it. It's not.
I get it. Well, just he might be the head fallen angel. I don't know the hierarchy down there. I don't know what's going on. It's all made up anyway, so who cares?
It's all bullshit. Who gives a shit?
So, she did that. This was in 1984. She started for Florida Championship Wrestling, which we've talked about. That's Eddie Graham, who then shot himself, and then Mike Graham, who his son. And this is a weird thing. The suicide runs in wrestling families. We know about the Von Erichs and all their suicides. Eddie Graham shot himself, the head of Florida Wrestling.
Right.
Then we're talking within the last 10 years, his son Mike Graham shot himself as well and killed himself.
Really?
Mike Graham later on will threaten Chris Benoit's life, and that will get Chris Benoit out of a contract that he didn't want to be in anyway.
Is that right?
Yeah, he'll threaten to, quote, cut his fucking throat at one point because Chris complained about something in WCW, and Mike was old school and told him to shut the fuck up.
Like that. Yeah.
So that's how that works. Anyway, they're doing this whole deal. She ends up marrying Kevin Sullivan,
Really?
who I think is about 13, 14 years older than her at this point as well.
This is marriage 2 for her?
This is marriage 2. Yeah, she divorces, quickie divorced to the one guy, marries Kevin Sullivan in 1985. Second husband, she's like 20. And her and Sullivan will be together for a while, though, here. She'll a long time. She goes around and she's kind of his, always in whatever crew he's in, wherever he goes. They go to WCW. She appears as something else. She plays a fan of Rick Steiner, is the way they do it. Okay. So they give her like big glasses and a Rick Steiner T-shirt. And they're like, see, she's dorky. And then she takes her glasses off. And it's like, ooh, it's one of those deals.
What's his on?
Eventually, she turned on him. That's the story. Is she turns on the good guy and goes with Kevin Sullivan, who's this evil guy, and she ends up being called Woman after that, and that's how she's Woman for the rest of her deal.
Wow.
But she's not one of the she's almost like a Sherry Martel, like she as a manager. She looks mean, and she gives like these withering stares, and she looks mean, and she looks like she might stab you if you fell in front of her out of the ring. Like that's what they're trying to portray. Like she looks vicious. She's not like this like withering flower on the side. Like, oh no, oh heavens me, they're fighting.
Yeah, but credit to dudes for when we like something, you can just be vague, and we'll make up the rest in our heads.
We'll
just
fill
call
it
her
in.
Woman. We'll figure it out. It's fine.
Woman. Well, because Kevin Sullivan's the devil, so he's just got all these people. You're woman, you're this, you're that. She becomes the manager of Doom, who is Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, who are a couple of giant black guys in masks, and they're like the only 2 black guys in WCW who are that big. So it's like, we know who you are.
Yeah.
Why are they in masks? It's Butch Reed and Ron fucking Simmons. What are we doing? Like, we know them already. They've been around forever. Yeah, and then they just took the masks off them because really it was the dumbest fucking thing ever. Great tag team, though. Then she ended up aligning herself with Ric Flair. And she was like Ric Flair's valet, and she was with the 4 Horsemen. And anyway, after that, there is that is when they come up with this angle. Oh, by the way, when she's in ECW, she does a really great job being Sandman's fucking manager. Really? Her and Sandman are a great fucking team because he's this drunken maniac with a kendo stick, and he's wearing like high top sneakers and Zuba pants, and he's crushing a beer on his forehead and all this crazy shit.
Bleeding
and then
before they say fight.
Before anything, and then she would every time. And then she would be standing off to the side, like holding his kendo stick when he's fighting, like looking like mean and shit. And it was a perfect combination. I really enjoyed her in that role. So anyway, she ends up in 1997. She's still married to Kevin Sullivan. Kevin Sullivan's the booker in WCW. Okay, he books kind of the lower level angles. So what he books is this weird angle where Kevin Sullivan and Nancy are together and married. Okay, in real life. Yeah. And on the show, you knew this on Nitro, okay?
It's obvious.
So you knew. No, they told you. Okay. They said, okay, they're married. Now, at the same time, they booked this angle where Chris Benoit and Nancy are having an affair behind Kevin Sullivan's back.
Okay.
And he doesn't notice it. And it's like right in front of him sometimes and all this type of shit. Now, while this happens, Nancy and Chris begin to have an affair. Because
it wasn't already happening and somebody wrote it into the show because of it? Or
yeah, he wrote it into the show, and then that's what happened. So as somebody, I can't remember what wrestler said it, but he said he booked his own divorce. That's never been done before. No one's ever booked their own divorce, but he did it. If he wanted out, that was the way to do it, I guess. But
he did great.
Either way.
Wrote her a new boyfriend.
Yep, and she ended up with him. So
in the 1980s, a rosé swept the country.
Hey, Mike, I really like this White Zinfandel.
Well, good. Now put it down. I'm going to try another one.
White Zin became America's top-selling wine. But most don't know that this sweet drink has a sour history. What began in 1986 with counterfeit bottles.
A big fraud, a multi-million-dollar fraud.
Sent investigators chasing one of the most powerful families in the business, the Licciardis. But the closer the feds got to them, the more dangerous things became. It's a story of deceit.
the time, I was paranoid.
Threats.
You touch my kids, I will kill you.
And murder.
With a .22 caliber bullet to the head.
What started with a scheme to mislabel wine spilled into a blood-soaked battle for succession. Welcome to Bloodvines. You can binge listen to Bloodvines exclusively and ad-free on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
Behind the closed doors of government offices and military compounds, there are hidden stories and buried secrets from the darkest corners of history. From covert experiments pushing the boundaries of science to operations so secretive they were barely whispered about. Each week, on Redacted, Declassified Mysteries, we pull back the curtain on these hidden histories. 100% true and verifiable stories that expose the shadowy underbelly of power. Consider Operation Paperclip, where former Nazi scientists were brought to America after World War II, not as prisoners, but as assets to advance U.S. intelligence during the Cold War. These aren't just old conspiracy theories. They're thoroughly investigated accounts that reveal the uncomfortable truths still shaping our world today. The stories are real. The secrets are shocking. Follow Redacted, Declassified Mysteries on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Redacted early and ad-free right now on Wondery Plus.
They end up having an affair. Now, he's still married, too. So, to
Martina?
Yeah, so they end up breaking up. He breaks up with her, and she breaks up with Kevin Sullivan, and Benoit and Sullivan have a big angle over it too, where they have a big match, and it's I think that's the one where Sullivan gets pinned in the bathroom, if I'm not mistaken. It's like an falls count anywhere. It's in the men's room.
That's the ultimate take what comes.
You took my wife. That's a fucking feud.
The ultimate take what comes. Yeah, I broke his neck, but I literally took his wife, so we're going to write that in.
And then Benoit won.
Yeah.
So they just continued with the angle.
Yeah, just keep it going.
I guess Sullivan's a pro anyway. You got to say that about him. He's like, well, fuck it. I'm not going to. But at this point now, Chris will never trust Kevin Sullivan as a booker again now, because he feels like Sullivan's going to get back at him for something. He's going to get back at me. He hates me.
Well, you should probably also never trust your wife, and she should probably never trust you.
No one should trust anyone here, really. This should be a triangle of distrust.
Yeah, all the trust is gone from all of us.
So Kevin Sullivan, I don't know if this was like a sign to all the other guys that he, wasn't going to harbor any hard feelings or what it was, but he books Chris Benoit to win the world championship against Sid Vicious, right? So he's supposed to. It was against Sid. Yeah, he's supposed to beat Sid. So he beats Sid and then quits the next day.
Really?
He won the title and then he wants to quit the next day. So anyway, they don't want to let him get out of the contract at first, but because Mike Graham said he'd cut his fucking throat over some slight that whatever happened, at that point they end up letting Chris out of his contract along with Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko. They go to WWF and become actually pretty big stars at that point because people knew who they were, and they were the guys that had been being kept down forever, and now they were over there, and they made them count there. So, that's all going on. Benoit's referring to Nancy as his fiance the whole time.
Okay,
whole time here, and she kind of stopped. You didn't see her around anymore as much on TV and wrestling, and she kind of became his manager from home in Atlanta. That's kind of how that worked. So he divorces his first wife. According to the divorce documents here, Benoit's wife has sole responsibility for the children, I guess, for taking care of them, but they have joint custody. But I guess she's a caregiver, and this is a Canadian divorce, so I don't know the particulars of it up there. I don't know if there's beaver pelts involved that you have to give on a monthly basis, or I'm not sure how it is. Hockey lessons, I don't know who pays for those. Obviously, that's a problem.
How many maple candies you got to send every month?
Bear repellent, you got to get the kid soaked in that every couple days, so that's a problem. Who knows what's happening?
Yeah.
So in this thing, in a dispute over visitation rights later on, Benoit was paying child support of $3,000 and spousal support of $2,000 per month. So he's paying $5,000 a month and like $2,000.
Holy shit!
That's what he's doing. So it's a lot in 2000 because by then he's making good money though with WWF, but he's not making $2 million a year. I'll tell you that much.
That's so much.
If he's making, it's a lot. So He asked for the children to be able to see him for a month during summer break and alternating Christmas and spring breaks. So kind of the father who doesn't live here package there. So we got your standard package here. This here's the dad's more than 1,000 miles away package. Want to set you up with that? It's a month in the summer, alternating Christmas and spring break, and about $5,000 a month in child support. I'll set you up with that whole package. Okay, we'll get you going. Let's get the paperwork started.
Oh, you want to add the claim them every other year on your insurance?
Well,
right.
Hold on. We're gonna have to go back to the table on that. We're gonna have to go back to the table on who gets to claim them for taxes every year. And if you pay for the health insurance, you get to claim them on the taxes, right? Not every year. I don't think so. Let's talk about it. Not great. So. February 25th, which is my son's birthday, as a matter of fact, not the year, but the date, 2000 is when Nancy and Chris welcome Daniel into the world, their son. That's when they have their son, Daniel Christopher Benoit, on February 25th, and November 23rd of 2000, same year, Chris and Nancy get married.
Okay.
So,
this is baby one for her at all? She doesn't have any other kids?
She has no other kids, but he has the two.
This is his third.
Previous. This is his third. So June 28th, 2001 is when he has neck fusion surgery.
Ouch.
He's had all sorts of fucking neck problems, obviously. Yeah. And we'll talk about this also in a second here, but all sorts of neck problems, and he gets his neck fused, and I guess this will help extend his career a little bit because he can.
That's brutal.
The pain is gone a little bit. But Chris, his style, even by 2001, he has beaten the living shit out of himself. Between all the crazy shit he was doing in Japan, all the crazy shit he was doing in ECW, all the crazy shit he was doing on WCW, the amount of times this guy fucking lands on his head, the amount of chair shots this guy takes it's repulsive, man. I mean, and just to talk about quickly the chair shots, back then, nowadays, if there's a chair involved, I mean, the guy puts his arm up to block it, and it is perfectly telegraphed and nobody cares. It's fine. We get it. Back then, you were considered a pussy if you didn't put your hands to your side and let somebody whale you in the fucking head completely unprotected as hard as or however hard they felt like it. You were considered a
seat right in the head.
Yeah. You were considered a pussy. The seat, sometimes the fucking bridge of the thing. I mean,
oh my God.
People get fucked up from that shit. I mean, and you were considered a pussy otherwise. Some guys would put their arm up, but it wasn't. Not the guys like Benoit who wanted the fans to love them and all that kind of shit, because when you take a chair shot, people go crazy for that. They love it. So that's how he became a hero, was I can take more abuse. But after a while, how much abuse can you take?
Holy shit. Yeah.
That's it. So through this time, he really is becoming a large star in WWF. They like him. They promote him correctly. They treat him as a star because the fans treat him as a star. That's one thing. They're not always perfect with it, but back in the day, WWF was very good, and WWE kind of toward this moment in time, 2002-ish, I think, once they switched to WWE there. They were a lot of times good at going, well, the fans are really responding to this guy, so we're going to go with this guy because it's overwhelming. You know what I mean? They're not perfect. It's how you could name, wrestling fans could name 20 examples of times they didn't do that and fucked up on guys. Yeah. It happens, but a lot of times they were pretty good at noticing when the fans were really on board with somebody and changing the way they were going. And they knew right from the beginning that the fans are going to like this guy. He goes balls out in the ring. He's our guy. So May 2003, all right, Nancy files for divorce against Chris.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you didn't know about that? She had filed once before? Filed for divorce, citing her marriage as irrevocably broken and alleging cruel treatment. And she also got a temporary restraining order based on an April incident where Chris, according to Nancy, quote, lost his temper and threatened to strike her and cause her extensive damage to the home and personal belongings of the parties, including furniture.
Well, you can't do that.
No, I will beat you up and fuck this whole place up.
Right.
So that's what they did. So she had a temporary restraining order and a divorce in the works. By August of 2003, though, they reconcile and Chris moves back in. Chris wasn't living with them. Irrevocably broken. Yeah.
That's a big one.
Apparently it's revocable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, so this is one of those things where you're like, you know what I mean? This is like,
There's a fracture in this.
This is like hearing, the Feldman family moved out of Germany briefly in 1932, but then came back. You're like, no, don't, no, stay.
There was a way out.
Stay where you were. God, no. So I don't mean to make light of that too, but Jesus Christ, this is fucking horrible. You just go, shit, if it just would have went through. So she dropped it in 2003 and dropped the restraining order and everything like that. So March 14th, 2004.
Yep.
This is Chris's big day here. He has a three-way match, a triple threat match, they call it, against Triple H and Shawn Michaels. So these are two of their signature stars, and he's in the ring with them, and this is for the world title here.
Big deal.
World heavyweight title. WWE does not give the world heavyweight title back then to small guys, period. Right. Just never happened. I mean, even before, leading up to this, Michaels was the smallest guy, and Shawn Michaels is 6'2". He's not a small guy, or 6'1", but he's a pretty big guy. Like in normal people land, he's a big guy. So this is the smallest guy they would ever think about putting the belt on, I think, because I don't think they might have gave it to Rey Mysterio later, but. Wow. He's a different thing. He's a fucking acrobat, for Christ's sake. No one's doing what he's doing.
Maybe they don't give it to anybody else because it doesn't fit him.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's too big. Takes up his whole chest. So it was...
Smallest button's a 36. Sorry.
I'm sorry. We can't help you. He ends up getting Triple H in the Crippler crossface and winning the match and winning the title, and they really make a big deal of it too. Like, I mean, they have confetti fall from the fucking ceiling. It's like they made a big deal of like he's been working his whole life for this, and like no one thought he could do it, but he's gonna do it. Like they made a whole big Rocky scenario out of it, and then when he won the title, ticker tape fucking coming down. It was a really good match too, honestly. It wasn't bad at all. I saw it for this. And it was going crazy. Nancy came in. Nancy and Daniel came in the ring and joined him, and he kissed her, and they fucking held their son up, and he's got his belt and his child up at the same time, and his fucking wife next to him. It could not possibly get any more good for Chris Benoit right now. Grace. This is as fuck. I mean, this is every dream achieved. Yeah. At this point, too, he's starting to make big money. He's starting to make $500,000 a year, $600,000 a year. I mean, he's got to work for it, but he's making it, and it's going real well here. He says in 2004, though, that quality time with my family is a big vice. It's something that I'll fight for and crave. So he's saying he doesn't think he gets enough time here with his family. Now, November 13th, 2005, Eddie Guerrero dies.
Yeah.
Eddie Guerrero was, like I said, he considered him his best friend. Chris is never the same, never bounces back from this.
And he died of heart failure, right? It was a
heart failure.
Yeah.
Heart failure in a fucking hotel room with his nephew trying to help him and give him CPR or whatever while it was terrible. Terrible fucking story. And now, much like Eddie had a huge drug and alcohol problem.
Yeah.
And at this point, Eddie is he's like wrestler clean, you could call it. Like, what he's doing is, it's not for recreation. He's not partying with shit, but he's taking steroids. He's using pills to sleep and this to wake up and all that kind of shit. It's necessary stuff, as they call it, maintenance shit that they have to do, but you can't abuse it. That's what they all say. So he's devastated by this, though. And he does it. He turns into he writes a bunch of weird things, and he, like in the Dark Side of the Ring, they talk about he came over the house after Eddie died, like a while afterwards, and like to see his kids and his wife, Eddie's Vicky and the kids there.
Over to Eddie's house, yeah.
They said they couldn't find him after a minute. They looking around for Chris. He was upstairs in the bed on Eddie's side of the bed, laying there sobbing, just crying.
That's fucking weird, man.
He would go down to Eddie's gym and just cry in it, just sit there and sob and cry, and and it went on. Like his wife was like, okay, I liked him too, but you
can't just.
I got a date at 9:30, so it's been a while. You know what I mean? Where
I can't Chris just have you over here sniffing his sheets and crying, man.
It's really weird. Yeah, it's really weird. My date's gonna go, who's he? And I'm gonna go, okay, now he's. Listen, it's a long story. The guy in the gym scraping the dried sweat off of one of my husband's exercise machines into a tiny Ziploc bag. That is Chris Benoit. He's a friend of ours. Don't worry about it. That's a lot. So
he's going to snort those flakes later.
he's definitely going to do that. Just make him a part of him. So another thing he does that's weird is, I guess, Eddie at some point gives Chris a Bible. Eddie's real religious. Chris is not religious at all. So he gives Chris a Bible, and like Chris like carries it with him, but he's not really into religion, but he's like, it's Eddie's thing that he gave him, so he wants to respect his friend. He ends up having a very odd relationship with religion here for the next couple of years where...
Well, I can understand, because it's his best friend, and that's the thing that meant the most to Eddie, obviously, is his religion, and he gave that to him trying to help him. And it's a piece of Eddie. That's like the closest piece of Eddie.
If I know a guy who's super, super religious and he drops dead at 38, I'm going to go, well, that's not fucking working. Like, whatever he was doing, I'm not, like, obviously that wasn't the right combination. You're trying to click the safe. Well, that's the wrong one. It didn't open. In terms of logic, like, fuck.
Suppose, but maybe necessarily with religion, life isn't the grand reward.
I guess not, but
you know what I mean.
That's why I'm not religious.
Chris wants him here with him, but
you want me to not care about.
He wants to be here too, but
not care about what I can touch and feel and see and hear and smell and taste in case of something else. You know, the bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Ever hear that?
That's a thing, yeah.
So there you go. Anyway, I don't know. Either way, if you want to be religious, be religious. I don't give a fuck. Just
I don't get it either.
Just please don't get nominated to the Supreme Court. Thank you. Anyway, that would be helpful. So February 16th, 2006. Now, by the way, in this area, he lives in the Peachtree area near Atlanta. Yeah. Even though he works for WWE, he keeps his place in Atlanta. Okay. This is kind of a crowded place, though, apparently.
Like the Buckhead area?
I don't know. It's called Peachtree. I think it's kind of out near a suburb or something, but it's still
isn't Peachtree there.
Everything is Peachtree. It's all the roads and apparently this town or this section of town and everything. So apparently a lot of the wrestlers lived here, and it was like his house was right on a public street, and like he said, he was telling his friends, it got to the point, because he's fucking incredibly famous at this point. It got to the point where people knew where he lived and they couldn't go outside anymore.
No.
Like his son couldn't go out and play in the yard because there would be people out there bothering them and all this sort of shit. They'd have to. He kind of became where he had to hide in his house all the time. So they decide to build a mansion. Peachtree City, the one place is called. So they build a mansion in unincorporated Fayetteville. They build a mansion. Or Fayette, whatever it is, Fayette County.
Got it. In the country.
In the country, kind of, yeah. So he has this fucking huge house built. I mean, it's all his shit. It's got his own home gym in the basement and all that shit. It's the dream house, gated, so nobody can get into the house. Like the house itself is gated, so people can't get in. They get 2 German shepherds to wander the fucking yard, to protect this kid in case anybody tries to fuck with him and all that sort of shit. So the problem is this kind of separates them from a lot of the people that they hung out with before. It isolates them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the wrestlers lived in that area, including one of his good friends. Do you remember Public Enemy, the tag team?
No.
Crazy guys wore like hockey jerseys with busy shit on them that said Public Enemy. Kind of short guys. Went through tables all the time.
Oh, okay.
One of the guys, Johnny Grunge, Michael Lynn Durham is his real name. Johnny Grunge lived in this area and became really close with Chris. Like after Eddie died, Johnny was the one guy from the business that Chris would like talk about personal shit with and family stuff, and like, you know, they could talk deep and shit. You know what I mean? You know, you're people that you don't tell everything to, people that you do. So and then you tell me everything else. So. Which is fine. That's what I would like. But I mean, that's he's that to him, you know? Okay. So it's his closest friend left in the area. February 16th, 2006, Johnny Grunge dies.
God damn it.
Very young. They say of sleep apnea, but I mean, he was a real heavy set guy, but there's all sorts of drugs and everything else involved in it for years and years. So it's very fucking sad. So now he's lost him too. So he's lost his 2 people that he talks to closely. Close confidants for a while there, and they moved out to this isolated area. So now they're kind of just by themselves in this isolated area. They're living in this house. They still didn't even sell their old house yet when they moved into the new house. They didn't even give a shit. They were like, moving into the new house. Yeah, going well, I guess. Jesus. So the summer of 2006, they live in the new house, and they have a neighbor named Holly Shrepfer. Yeah, Shrepfer. Jesus. It's a lot of consonants in that name. For a name that long, there should be more than 2 consonants in it, I feel like. Or 2 vowels, I'm sorry. Two vowels, yes, 2 E's. Schrepfer. It's a long name to have 2 vowels. It just is. So it's a lot. So she's driving home when she sees a, as she puts it, disheveled and upset woman walking down the road. And this isn't an area where people really just kind of wander down the street. It's a rural area. Maybe if they have a dog or something. But she knew her as her next door neighbor that just moved in. She's like, oh, that's the lady that just moved in. Yeah. Holly hadn't met her yet, though. She just seen her and all that sort of thing.
That's a nice time to introduce herself. She looks like shit.
Looks like shit. Pull up next to her.
Yeah.
So she pulls up next to Nancy, and looks like she's been crying and shit. She's like, are you okay? Like, is everything all right?
And I'm clearly having a bad day. Yeah, let's talk.
Let's talk. And this is not the way for Nancy that I'm sure she'd love to meet the new neighbors as well. Because Nancy's very social, and she, ends up being very good friends with Holly. And I'm sure this isn't the way for her that's best to meet people. Right. She says, everything okay? And Nancy said, actually, no. I just had a fight with my husband, and he threw me against the wall, and I'm afraid to go back to the house. So I don't know what to do. I'm just wandering around the street, which is horrifying, obviously. So Holly says, I guess, what do you want to do? You want me to call the police? Like, I don't know what you want to do about it, basically. And Nancy decides that she would like her to drive her to a hotel near the Atlanta airport where she can spend a couple of nights and figure out what the hell she wants to do with her life here. Yeah, because Chris is a very public figure, and I guess it's discussed, too, that, if she calls the cops, then basically, their whole income could be over, and that's not helpful to Nancy either. So the way she puts it is, we have a son and shit like that, so I got to figure out if I'm going to leave or what's going to happen here. So either way, the neighbor, it's not her decision to decide, so she takes her where she wants to go, and I think hopes for the best here. So anyway, this isn't abnormal for them, obviously. The divorce proceedings, the restraining order. Apparently they're known even by their group of friends back in Peachtree City there for having giant fights in public. They're that couple that would fight in public and scream at each other. And Nancy doesn't take shit. That's the thing. Nancy's not taking your shit. She's been in the fucking wrestling business for 15 years. She's taken 0 shit. 20 years at this point.
I worked for State Farm. Fuck you.
Yeah. State Farm, I worked for Eddie Graham. Do you understand that? Like, I worked for, old school promoter. Like, you're not going to fucking punk me. Like, I fought fans in parking lots, fuck away from me.
Yeah.
She's not taking that shit. And everybody said, especially if she had a couple drinks or had some pills in her, she would really lay into Chris and didn't give a fuck. Yeah, had no fear of it, I guess. And they would fight like cats and dogs. So that's what would happen. And he would be physically abusive. So, yeah, that's how that happened. And it's so weird, too, because I guess everything was a lot better when they were in Peachtree City, like in their relationship. It was a lot better. They still fought and everything like that because they filed for divorce over there, but it was better than here. Here, it's just been this isolation. Nancy's having a hard time with it, I think. They have to find a new school for their son. They have all these new things to figure out, and Chris is always on the road, which doesn't help. So eventually, too, the friends said that Chris, kind of the Benoits, withdrew from their friend group and that sort of thing. It was just kind of he became more reclusive than normal here. Sure. And a lot of that might have to do with his burgeoning fame, too. That's the other thing is when you're really famous, like a guy like Chris Benoit at that point, not making any excuses or anything, that could also be that it's just not comfortable for you to go out. People are staring at you. You understand.
Yeah.
Obviously we don't get that or know that or anything, but there's people that are famous that's how they live. It's just not comfortable for them.
You've got to be cut out for that kind of lifestyle because
and he's not.
Right. Yeah.
He's a wrestler.
Right. Yeah.
He's not Hulk Hogan. He's a worker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it was up to him, he'd go to work, wrestle, have the best match, and then go home and nobody would know who he was, and he'd go home with his wife and kids, and then he'd fucking go back and wrestle again. Like, that's how to him, this is like clocking in.
Yeah.
Whereas other people, they're like, awesome, this is a springboard to movies, and maybe I can do this or maybe I can do that. Where Chris never wanted any of that shit. He wanted to be a wrestler. Didn't give a fuck.
To be part of it in that sense and be a big star like that, you've got to understand you've got to have walls built around your lifestyle, and you've got to be able to be comfortable being alone and comfort and solitude is not something that a lot of people are cut out for, man. Especially if you're in the being the public eye and then going to the comfort of solitude it's really difficult to go between the two.
Tough to go back and forth here, absolutely. And I think he's they're kind of being in a bit of a fishbowl at this point, and I think that's his problem here, and he withdraws from it, and I think too it might be hard for some people to get used to that as well, just to get used to the fact that, oh wow, I'm a different guy now. Either way, a guy named Chris Masters, who's a wrestler for years and years here, he said, quote, "To be perfectly honest, I respected the hell out of Chris Benoit for being the man that he was, but there was always an intense energy coming from him every time I shook his hand. It made for some short and awkward conversations."
Sure.
Not good, not that tight with him, that's why. So December 2006, Nancy Benoit has the same surgery that Chris had in 2001.
Really?
So the same neck fusion with the same doctor and everything. So same deal. She's taken plenty of bumps too back over the years. Her body's fucked up too.
Is she taking more at home?
And that's the other thing. Who knows if she's taken some extra bumps that we don't know about. That's horrible to think about. So March of 2007. Late March 2007. By the way, a lot of the timeline stuff, not the opinions, because we don't take anybody's opinions. We form our own opinions here. So about these people and about about circumstances and cases. Like, I'm not going to listen to some editorial about it. I can read the facts of the case
and figure it out.
So, but the book Chris and Nancy by Irv Muchnick is a very good resource for actual documentation of things. Like, I got these records from the investigation and building a timeline of when this happened and that happened, and a lot of this is from the book, by the way. If you're interested in this, buy the Chris and Nancy book. It's interesting, but it's not for not for the wrestling part of it, because the guy obviously isn't that big of I don't think a wrestling fan.
Otherwise, it's a lot of speculation of the timeline, correct?
Not really speculation, because the timeline's kind of set in stone by not the timeline of the actual murders, but timeline of who knew what when is pretty set up by phone records of who called who when, who texted who when. That all lines up to the point of WWE looks really scummy. They could not have more shit dripping off their face from this fucking thing, and they try to act like it's nothing. It's wild. So 2007 in March, Nancy tells Chris's mom, Nancy's mother-in-law, that she thinks that Chris is, quote, not doing the right thing on the road.
What does that mean?
She thinks he's going out, partying, and fucking women. That's what she thinks. He's being a wrestler out there.
Yeah.
And this relationship of being on the road is really difficult. How many comics do you know that are, they fight with their wife before they go on, they fucking do this before they go on. It's a home life is like this, and you're on the road and you're trying to do this, and there's also another life that's there that you kind of have to participate in, even if you're gone, because Jesus Christ. So it's hard. It's hard on everybody.
It takes, dude. It's not easy to do, and it takes a certain group, takes a certain couple of people to be able to make that work.
Yes.
And if it's not together, it's not together, and it's going to be a disaster.
It's going to be a mess. It's hard on home base, and it's hard on the person out there. It's hard on everybody, and so everybody feels like it's tough. It's really tough. So you can see what they're going to argue about here. So the mom, Chris's mom, said she would talk to Chris when he came to Canada in July, which we know now will never happen because July doesn't happen for them. So March 2007. Chris's son David and daughter Megan were visiting from Canada for a week. So this is spring break here. Chris and Nancy fight loudly on several occasions during all this, and at least one time during the week, Nancy pushed and hit Chris. That the kids saw. We don't know what happened behind closed doors, but that happened. She was very mad at him because he had made no preparations or plans for any time with the kids for that week. Like, he had plans of shit to do, and she was like, your kids are here for a week. Why don't you see them? after the fight, they had a big fight one night. Chris took David out to dinner, and they had dinner together. And other times, David would take young Daniel upstairs and kind of get him out of the way of, little kids don't need to see that shit.
No, that's too much.
So it's a problem. The other thing is he has been on steroids continuously for a long fucking time.
15 years or better?
At least, yeah. I mean, a long time. Chris, without the steroids, he could work out all day, and he's just not gonna be a wrestler.
Yeah.
And he's also not going to be able to get through the grind of it, the beating of it, without the recovery time of him. So it's just, he needs to have that shit to wrestle. So his own endocrine system had stopped producing its own normal supply of testosterone.
What?
That's how long he's been on it continuously for 15 years.
He doesn't even make it anymore.
Doesn't even make it. So this became the basis for a therapeutic use exemption under the WWE wellness program. So they had a therapeutic use exemption. So basically, their whole thing for years and years and years after the whole steroid scandal, if we care about their health and we're doing all this, unless you get a note from your doctor and then you can jack yourself up full of any kind of fucking monkey hormones you want and come out looking like Triple H, we're fine with it. As long as your doctor said you have an injury, which... If the injury is because you've taken too much steroids, you need more steroids. That's your. I don't know the medical reality of it, but I think you've timed out of this business, sir.
When the usage has compromised your system to creating it at all, like that's insane.
It's crazy, and
like that. I don't. You're obviously not fit for this job.
No. And WWE is the silver-haired, middle-aged white man of all time, as we know. Vince McMahon, I think, is the grand champion of them. I know Dana White's coming hard for his title, but I don't think you can ever... Yeah. He just pulled another one off. You can't... This guy's going to be 100 years old pulling off capers, man.
He's his own silver-haired, middle-aged white man. Like,
that's what I mean.
Do that.
Well, he's had Jerry McDevitt as lawyer, who is his, as we talked about on that one Patreon episode about his steroid trial. So... He under this program with a doctor's prescription, he could just shoot him testosterone, whatever the fuck else he wants into him. It's testosterone replacement therapy now, so it's just medical. He's jacked. His deltoids are the size of a ham hock. It's just to replace the testosterone he's lost, though. He's not taking any extra, just to get that little bit back in there. That's
There's
all.
No surplus, or it's just
no
a
problem.
Supplement.
Yeah, no problem. If he walks half a block, his thighs catch fire from friction, but that's just because helping. So also he, I guess, had recent sexual dysfunction as well. Because, he's on a shitload of steroids, other drugs, and everything else. So, and she also thinks he's cheating at the same time. We don't know about that. So
what little left is in there, he's drained it on the road.
He's spilling it, definitely. He's spilling it on at fucking away games. This is a problem. She also was concerned with what she's called bee stinging. That's what Chris called it, which was putting heavy amounts of steroids in yourself so you'll look big quickly. Like you got stung by a bunch of bees and you're swole up. You know what I'm saying? That's, also painkillers and all sorts of shit like that. He's taken that. He's got mood drugs we'll talk about. And Nancy would occasionally take some of those painkillers and shit for herself. And so you're starting to see a picture of there's a lot of quicksand around here for this relationship. It's not great, but you don't see what's coming though. This sounds like a divorce is coming.
Sure enough, it sounds like it's going to be a contentious divorce. It sounds, and they're both the mood stabilizers alone, self-medicating and choosing your dosage is that's bad enough. But then you mix the fucking testosterone and fucking painkillers. That's terrible.
It's bonkers. Yeah. And so it's different because it's like on Small Town Murder, we'll come up with a thing like this and we can see what's coming because the guy, also had like 4 sodomy charges in high school and he, you know what I mean? And then he like assaulted a woman in a park for no reason. And then you're like, I see something coming. But this, you see maybe Nancy just getting fed up and leaving. That's what I can see here. But she tries to make a go of it because they have a 7-year-old or 6-year-old at this point, 7 now in the story. So I guess in January 2007, she threw out a big stash of steroids. She keeps trying to get him to get off the steroids because she thinks that's his problem.
That's the problem, though. You can't
That's
just
what she
take
wants.
somebody's. That's pouring people's booze down the drain. All you're going to do is piss
It's
them
not
off.
He's just gonna get more. That's the thing. It's not his decision at that point. But if you're so fucking fed up, at some point you just pour all the booze out and you go, "You're not getting drunk tonight." You're doing the fucking Karen Hill throwing the car keys out the window. Not without your car keys, you're not. One of those.
I'm gonna find them.
I'm gonna find them, Karen.
Yeah,
that's the thing. So you can't stop it. So Chris was so angry that he left the home for 2 weeks.
Really?
What do you think he was doing out there? Jamming himself full of whatever he wanted to. That's the problem. So it's terrible. In May, now we're getting into May of this year, May 5th of 2007, Nancy texts Chris, quote, "Daniel has called twice today. Why can't bother with him either?" So why can't you bother with him either? So I guess she tried to call him. He's not answering. Now Daniel's trying to get a hold of him, and he's not answering for his own son.
That's not cool.
So she's like, "Hey, what the fuck?" The morning of May 9th, she says, "One night you're texting I love you during the day, or one night you're texting I love you during the day you won't talk. Get off the crap. You're on. It's making you passive aggressive, and I don't need this abuse." Yeah. So he's on something here. 3 hours later, she said that he hadn't made himself available to his 2 kids. With Martina here, who are visiting, quote, "Your big claim, ask anyone you work with how you are. No one knows what goes on behind closed doors. And the excuses about not being able to see your kids is your failure in putting no effort to them. Paying out lots of money, sending for them twice a year is a far cry from being a dad. You need to get it together. I will not accept this steroid-induced roller coaster ride of emotional abuse. Ignoring the problem or running away isn't going to help you face it. You need professional, and only if you're fully honest about all of it."
And she's right about every word she just said.
She's right. And this is the part that pisses me off about a lot of people, because a lot of people in the WWFE put out the fucking narrative that steroids had nothing to do with it. Okay. And a lot of people said steroids had nothing to do with it because some people get roid rage, but not everybody gets roid rage. And that's true. We're not saying it's a roid rage situation, but Nancy has been in the wrestling business for 20 years. Nancy knows exactly how steroids affect men because she has been around exclusively a bunch of men on fucking steroids for 20 years, 24 hours a day, including in the hotels afterwards. She was married to Kevin Sullivan. She knows what the fuck goes on.
And even
she
if
knows.
Even if she's just being vague about men in general and wrestlers in general, she's had a passenger seat view of how Chris reacts to everything. So she knows exactly what's happening.
She says, "I will not accept this steroid-induced roller coaster ride of emotional abuse." She knows that's the cause of it.
Right. The catalyst is that.
That's it.
There may be other things.
There's other shit
adding in, but the catalyst and igniter of this entire thing is the roid use.
Brain damages dried leaves, and this shit is gasoline, and that's what it is. We have a pile of dried leaves, so I'm getting hit in the fucking head. Now you're pouring steroid gasoline on it, and you're going to come over with an anger fucking match, and you're going to drop it on there, and now here we go. So it's not great. Then later on, she says in that day, she says, "You don't get it. I do, except your emotional. You don't get it. I do, except your emotional and verbal abuse. You want to talk to me, or you're going to have to put more effort into it than this." Then the next day, she said, "You're a grown man with 3 kids. Set the example. Are you trying to say this is how you grew up watching your dad call your mom names and make her cry?"
No, Nancy.
No, then what gives you the right? Because his parents aren't like that. That's why she's saying, no, then what the fuck are you doing it for? Grow up for mighty sakes. Get off the stuff. It's obvious. I'm probably not the only one who can see, and we both know the wellness program is a joke. WWE's wellness program. In other words, we both know you can't, because he's trying to say, I'm not doing shit. I just passed my test.
Right.
When it comes to other drugs. And she's saying, we know they're not really testing you, Chris. Shut the fuck up. I'm in this business. This would work if I was some secretary you marry. If I stayed at State Farm, this might work. I'm in the business. I know what you're doing. So the morning of May 12th, she said, "I tried to put an end to this. You're the one who is dragging it out. It's stupid. You could have been home last year doing." I don't know what that means, but these are exact text messages. So angry texting, who knows?
Fast.
Fast.
Yeah.
No one. What's my line? Nothing. I fucking said it one time. No one types faster than an angry woman. No one can text faster than an angry woman. There's smoke coming off their fingers. You're trying to get one thought off, and you're like, how did you just tell me where you grew up and all your childhood friends? How'd that happen? And the time I went to say that didn't. I went to say no, that's not true. How the fuck did you do that?
Yeah. If she's accusing you of something, don't even ask why. Just wait a sec. She'll tell you.
Wait a sec. Yeah. That's funny. So, yeah, no one types faster than an angry woman. That's a thing. So she said that. Then she said, Daniel has been calling you. That's later this afternoon of the 12th of May. Daniel has been calling you. You need to call him, and me too. This has gone on long enough. I tried to talk to you. You could have been at home yesterday. So he's out, whatever, doing something. That night. If you haven't figured Daniel knows how to dial your cell by pushing phone book and scrolling to Chris' cell, he's mad at me because you haven't called. Be an adult and call. It won't make much more for him to realize it's not me he's mad at. He's not a baby anymore, and a message isn't going to be enough. So talk to your kid and tell him that make him fucking feel good here. May 22nd, he said they're arguing about his ex-wife and some problems now. So it's gotten to this. She says, quote, the German Christmas ornament would not have bothered me had Martina not kept asking about it. So apparently there's some German ornament that's something to do with them, and she doesn't want it on the tree, which is all understandable shit that happens in relationships. Had not kept asking me about it, especially when she kept asking me about it on my birthday. She tried to ignore me on Mother's Day. I called back twice. So when your parents do come, I will confront your mom. She has put me in the middle of this. She has put me in the middle this time. I'll handle it. 10 years now, haven't been here and now still can't come back when the kids are together. My folks are coming just for the kids' summer holiday. Effort. Second on my list to help. Okay. We asked when I had the big surgery 2 years ago. It's enough already. No more excuses. Just be real. So she is clearly trying to get him to participate in the relationship, family, something.
Yeah. Your family is causing problems. You're not fixing it. I have to go be the bad guy. You're making me look bad.
Yeah.
This is uncomfortable, and I don't like it, and you're being a dick. So come home and fix shit.
The worst, though, is she's fighting with his mother. That's That's impossible. I've been there.
You can't win that.
Now it's Sarah. Sarah and my mother are like, they'll conspire against me, for Christ's sake. Like they're, but my ex and my mother got in some fights, and then they both yell at me because I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck you two are arguing about.
You two don't like each other.
I don't know anything about this. How is this my fault? So that's what we do. So
he was hip-hop's biggest mogul, the man who redefined fame, fortune, and the music industry.
The first male rapper to be honored on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Sean Diddy Combs.
Diddy built an empire and lived a life most people only dream about.
Everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, that's what's up.
But just as quickly as his empire rose, it came crashing down.
Today I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution.
I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I made no excuses. I'm disgusted. I'm so sorry.
Until you're wearing an orange jumpsuit, it's not real. Now it's real.
From his meteoric rise to his shocking fall from grace, from law and crime, this is the rise and fall of Diddy. Listen to the rise and fall of Diddy exclusively with Wondery Plus.
In the 1980s, a rosé swept the country.
Hey, Mike, I really like this White Zinfandel.
Well, good. Now put it down. We're going to try another one.
White Zin became America's top-selling wine. But most don't know that this sweet drink has a sour history. What began in 1986 with counterfeit bottles.
A big fraud, a multi-million-dollar fraud.
Sent investigators chasing one of the most powerful families in the business, the Licciardis. But the closer the feds got to them, the more dangerous things became. It's a story of deceit.
At the time, I was paranoid.
Threats.
You touch my kids, I will kill you.
And murder.
With a .22 caliber bullet to the head.
What started with a scheme to mislabel wine spilled into a blood-soaked battle for succession. Welcome to Bloodvines. You can binge listen to Bloodvines exclusively and ad-free on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
That's not great. On May 26th, she is talking about Chris has been saying that basically he's out working his ass off and you don't appreciate it. And she said, money orders every month can't give hugs. You should keep working. You should keep working. Wouldn't want the ex to miss another 4 weeks paid while you send for your annual I'm a great father summer holiday. So, yeah. Wouldn't want your ex to miss out. Apparently, Nancy's saying your ex is living off of their money that you're giving, and you get to feel like a good dad for the summer, which they're divorced, and that's really his only option, though, is to try to feel like a good dad for the summer. You can't. Yeah. Then she says later on, quote, what's 60,000 times 10? 600,000. Yeah. Boy, I feel sorry for you. All that money, time, and effort, and still no thank you. No thanks for the trips every year, twice, 3 times at least a year. I wonder, does anyone really know when they go to bed at night or eat a meal or wear the clothes they put on, how tired you are at the end of the week or how very hard it is to work for 600,000? Nope, it's much easier to have it handed to you with 4 weeks paid holiday. You have no idea what you've lost. No need to worry. I'll make sure your sacrifices are well known. So she's talking about
nice. That's a great wife.
Yeah. Well, no, she's talking about she's mad at the ex.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's very supportive and saying, look, you're working your balls off. You sent her over $500,000 with nothing to be spoken for. Not a thank you?
Yeah.
For Christ's sake.
So, she's still defending him on
your ex sucks. Come
from
home.
outside attacks.
Yeah. I understand you're probably stressed out and have a lot of pressure on your shoulders. Let me help. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, because she knows what the fuck he's going through. That's the other thing is like she knows what he's going through. She's been on the road. She understands it. He can talk about shit from the business with her, and it's not like, what do you mean? She'll know exactly what he's talking about. Yeah, she's been there, and she's dealt with Kevin Sullivan, who was like an executive, a booker in WCW, not an executive, but a booker. So she's even dealt with that. She understands how the business works better than anybody. She's fucking smart, too. That's the other thing. So in another text, she said that apparently she's mad at Chris's refusal to change the beneficiaries on an old $250,000 life insurance policies, which still has beneficiaries listed as Martina and the children. Not her and the children, not Nancy and the children.
God damn it.
So she says, quote, if you wanted your ex-wife to have your retirement fund, you would have given it to her 10 years ago at the divorce. If you wanted her to have more, you wouldn't have tried to hide your money. Now it's the point. We're married. I come first. Yeah.
Yes.
That's very fair. That's just, I haven't called, and it's important to make that call.
10 years.
10 years. So Nancy, at this point in the spring, tells Holly, the neighbor who saw her, that they're good friends now. Yeah. The stress of it all has made her, she's been drinking more, she's been taking pills, trying to self-medicate here, and trying to hold things together at home with the kids and all this type of shit. She said with Daniel, she said she's been trying to get into walks, trying to go for long walks to get into shape again, because with the neck surgery, she feels like she's out of shape, and Nancy's always been like, like rock thin,
trim,
but just rockin' bod type of chick. You know what I mean? So for her, she's just trying to feel better, I think, too. After a long neck surgery of being laid up, when you're used to physical activity, that's got to be hard for you.
Attractive.
Yeah, and she said when Chris would come home in between shows, sometimes he'd come home in between shows instead of staying on the road, and she said he was emotionally detached at that point. Which is, because he's in the middle of I don't think there's a comedian's wife on the planet who doesn't describe them as emotionally detached. You know what I mean? Have you ever heard one not described like that?
Some of these famous guys I see them with podcasts and they're touring and doing all this stand-up, and I know that they have very well grown children that are they're 10 to 14 years old. I don't know how the fuck they keep in contact with those kids. There's no way they're anything described as anything but uninvolved and detached.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Some of those guys, you could come home and there could be a fucking pool dug in your house and you go, when did we get a pool? I didn't even notice that. Holy shit. That was last month. You've been here twice since then. Really? Wow. I didn't even notice. So also he was described as controlling by Nancy as well. She said she felt like he didn't want her to have friends. And one night they had a fight and Chris hid her Hummer, her car.
What?
Hid it from her so she couldn't leave.
Oh, God.
Drove it, hid it somewhere. Holly he didn't just hide it like down the street, Jimmy. Right. Holly had to pick her up and drive Nancy around the Atlanta airport parking facilities, which is the largest maze known to the fucking surface of the earth. It's horrible.
He put it in a parking garage somewhere?
In Atlanta, at the Atlanta airport. Just left it there. And they had to drive around for a long time before they found it.
It's the busiest airport in the country.
Yeah, it's the parking lots are huge too. You know how hard it is to get an Uber out of there? It's fucking impossible. Where am I? What zone am I going to? I crossed the street. Now I'm over here. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's hard enough to get from Terminal A to Terminal B.
Oh, Christ. At least there's a tram. There's no goddamn tram to the Uber. You just walk around, follow people with suitcases.
Where are you going? I'm going there too.
Great. We don't know where we're going. We're all following one crazy person up front. So apparently he would call home sometimes and tell her exactly what to cook that night, even when he was on the road.
What?
Which is strange. Very strange. Apparently, too, one night in May, Bob Holly, Hardcore Holly, the wrestler, he said that Chris checked into a local hotel, and he had talked to Chris about this. He checked into a hotel after a fight in May, and Chris had told him that Nancy was, quote, fucked up on pills and booze, and they got in a fight. He also had, it's at this point, June 14th. He has, and this is just stupid shit. I don't even know if it fucking matters, but it's like he's exchanging a bunch of like old fart misogynist jokes with his fucking friends, like guys on a loading dock would throw back and forth in 1965. One of those.
I hear 'em.
This is with Hurricane Helms, the wrestler. How many men does it take to open a beer bottle?
Actual jokes.
None. It should be already open when the bitch brings it.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. These are not clever or funny here. How are women and toilet bowls similar?
Oh boy.
If the hole in the middle isn't worth a shit. I don't understand
how
that.
The middle isn't worth a shit.
If the hole in the middle isn't, how are they similar? If the hole in the middle isn't worth it,
whether or not the hole in the middle is worth a shit.
I don't even understand that jokes. I don't even understand that one. That's just a terrible joke. Jesus Christ, Chris, you're not no charisma. See what I'm saying? So Saturday, June 16th, Benoit is wrestling in Dothan, Alabama, which is about 200 miles away from Fayetteville. Nancy joins him at the show. She said at this point, she really thinks he's having an affair because she said that the people in the company, the WWE people, were walking around on eggshells around her like they knew something she didn't. Some of that shit. Like, oh, hey, how you doing? Weird shit. There was a rumor that he was having an affair with Michelle McCool, who was one of the divas. That was the rumor. Obviously, we don't know if that's true at fucking all. But during her, I guess from November of 2006, they found back in his phone records, they found a message where he asked another wrestler, could you please text me Michelle McCool's phone number?
Oh, boy.
But if he was having an affair with her, he could probably get it from her. You know what I mean? So who knows if they had an angle together? We have no goddamn idea. So also on the log are redactions of the phone number or numbers to which he texted about his arrivals on Delta Airlines flights. He was telling somebody that he'd arrive at 9:32 on May 3rd and at 8:25 on May 5th. And in between that, he went home. So like that was him going to other places. Uh-huh. Those are not his home landing times. No. He was telling someone when he got there, but it could have been
a driver.
Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
So also they said that they got Verizon Wireless produced, this is from the book, crude printouts of all the call information from the Benoit's phones, but the data starts at June 1st, so it's impossible to determine, who those were for, basically. So they said that they were... that was the rumor anyway. So Nancy, though, said that Chris sometimes went outside to carry on phone calls at home, which is a bad sign. He also had a second cell phone, which she knew about it because it was, for work shit. But she also believed that he was trying to hide that one from her. She said he never did this before, and she said that she knows what the fuck these guys are doing because she's done it before. She's been there, she's seen this before. So she said that this is bullshit. I know what's going on here. Like, I've seen the guys do this before, and at the same time she's saying, why won't you fuck me and all this type of shit because you don't want to have sex with me, but what are you doing? And it's getting just rough.
It's a fucking quagmire. It's
tough.
Ugly. Yeah.
It's marriages. These relationships fall apart. And it's just you have to leave. You have to be. I don't mean she should leave or he. No. They have to break up. Like they just have whoever. I don't know. Both people need to be mature enough. Whatever it is.
Or you have to be able to give grace and go and understand that you have flaws and she has flaws. Both have to admit it. Though. You know what I mean? This is all him.
You have to be able to tolerate the flaws. That's the thing. And she's not happy here, obviously.
And this is all him just
not either.
Giving her all the reasons in the world to distrust him.
Absolutely. June 17, 2007, Nancy gets home, returned home while Chris was, I guess, in a show in Columbus, Georgia. And Nancy has a recorded message, I guess, at 4:01 p.m. She said, "Grow up." That's her recorded message. Then 22 minutes later, I guess this was voicemail, "Answer the phone. I need to know what the plan is." That's 4:01. 4:35 p.m. "If I end up having to throw away any food again tonight, for tonight and tomorrow, I will not be cooking any meals for anyone for a very long time." So, like, I'm trying to cook. You going to fucking be home to eat it or not? Because if I have to cook this shit for nobody and throw it out, I'm going to be pissed, which is very fair.
Yeah.
Exceedingly fair. He got home from Columbus at 16 minutes past midnight on Monday, June 18th, let himself in through the security gate, and didn't deactivate the alarm. Okay. So the Fayette County 911 Center was alerted. A sheriff's deputy came out, and that happened again a few days later, too. Okay. Same shit happened here. Later that day, Nancy talked on the phone for 2 hours with her friend Pam Clark here. Nancy told Pam that Daniel was attending a summer horse riding day camp at next door neighbor's place there, the Holly. Sure. And they also discussed Nancy's concerns over the search for a school and all this type of shit. They also talked about Nancy's struggles with Chris over basically his controllingness, the lack of sex, and money problems because he's given money where she doesn't want him to be. She also specifically mentioned arguments over the life insurance policy and that she thinks he's having an affair. So all this shit's coming out. She also said that his mood swings were unbearable. She said he would pick a fight over almost nothing at all. She said she needed to get away to visit her parents in Florida or her sister in North Carolina or even move to one of those places. Just who knows? I just need to get the fuck out of here. She's at the end of her rope. Yeah. You know what I mean? She said that Chris has been physically abusive and she's also afraid of him, she tells her friend. And she said she was keeping evidence of the domestic violence in a safe place.
Oh, boy.
Said, I have evidence, safe place. Same thing Nicole did. Yep. Same thing Nicole Brown Simpson did. She said, quote, "If anything happens to me, make sure people know that Chris did it."
Oh, God.
That's what she told her friend.
If it's that far, though, come on.
That's what I mean.
You can't do this.
It's brutal. June 19th, 2007, Chris flies to Charlotte for a WWE TV taping, returns to Georgia on Wednesday morning. This is how this goes here. When he's got a couple days off, he sleeps a whole shitload. He gets tan. He goes to the tanning salon. He goes to the gym all the time. Yeah. He has to get his body back in shape again for after you beat it up for a few days. He talked to a friend of his about his plans for the 4th of July as well. So he's planning on clearly being alive for the 4th of July at this point. 8:30 Friday morning, Chris drops Daniel off at Holly's Horse Camp, which is a great name for it. Sure. Holly's Horse Camp. She said that she found it strange that he pulled up and dropped Daniel off and then drove off so quickly and recklessly, she said. But she said at least it's better than the day before when he didn't even take her down the driveway. He just dropped Daniel off at the edge of the property and drove away.
Walk up there, boy.
Yeah, he's like 6. It's a spread out big driveway. Yeah. Go on up there. So anyway, Chris drives to Carrollton, which is 40 miles northwest. He has an appointment with his doctor here, Dr. Phil Aston, and the appointment wasn't until 12:30. So they think maybe he got something to eat or some shit like that. He would go every couple of months to Aston for routine checkups and to get all his prescriptions filled. Right. That's what he would do. So he said he's just his regular aches and pains, but he said he's mildly depressed and wants to start taking Zoloft again, he tells his doctor. He says, I think I need it. So he discussed his marriage with his doctor as well, because he said he was depressed. The doctor said, what's wrong? So he said, well, Nancy's been acting, quote, moody and bitchy lately. And he was wondering if she's experiencing early onset menopause. Okay, that's how dumb we are. It's weird. I'm out all the time. I'm being a total dick. I'm not really paying attention to her. I'm probably more than likely fucking other people, and she notices this, and I'm on tons of drugs. Maybe she's just maybe it's just her hormones, right? That's why she's upset with that.
She's clearly a hormonal bitch, right?
Yeah, clearly going through the change, right? That's right now, I believe. Okay, good. So
30s is when they become shrews, right?
yeah. She's 43.
Yeah.
The doctor goes, it's a little young, 43. Probably not. We're going to go with you're kind of a dick, probably. He said that the doctor said that he would see her professionally after the 4th of July. And he said, if she wants to come here, I won't mention our conversation to her. Okay. So this is a very like Don Draper, Mad Men fucking way of taking your wife to see somebody.
Keep this a secret. This is between us.
No shit. On the way out, he was cordial, chatted with the office staff, posed for a picture, signed some autographs for the other patients. He can't even go to the fucking doctor without signing autographs. That's annoying. Yeah. On the way home, he talked to Hardcore Holly, and he asked, well, how's everything with Nancy? Everything better? And Chris said, quote, she's been acting like Hitler, but we're working it out.
Gee, what?
Hitler.
What does that mean?
She's rounding up the Jews, Jimmy. It's obvious. What do you think?
She's been saying some really anti-Semitic shit.
It's really wild, man. She's talking about the camps, and I'm like, listen, I don't think this is correct here. This is terrible. So it's at this point he meets up with a friend named Ray Rawls at the McDonald's on I-85 here. He worked he's a wrestler trying to be named Rick Michaels, which you're never going to get hired in the WWE if your name's Rick Michaels because they have a Shawn Michaels. So that's a problem. Now, this guy looked up to Chris a lot. I guess this Rawls guy he actually did get hired by WWE, but was fired after he was arrested for sexual exploitation of a minor.
Oh, boy.
Which you don't want to really have those people in this corporate family environment, really. That Goofy can't have kid diddling on his resume at Disney World. You know what I mean? Yeah. That guy has to work in the kitchen. He can't work with the kids. Like they can't be fucking shouting his support.
You go over there and work in Pirate Cove doling out burritos.
Yeah, that's what you're doing. Give out the turkey legs, asshole. So he said, though, everybody else threw him away, but Chris kept up their connection. And Chris told him, I live in a glass house myself, so I don't throw stones. That's what he said. That's what he told him. I'd be like, I don't live anywhere near that house or that neighborhood, and my house is not made out of even close to the same material your house is made out of. We all live in glass houses. You live in a rice paper house because you're a child molester. It's a lot easier to poke through a rice paper house. That's where you live.
You're allowed to throw nothing inside.
If it rains, it dissolves. That's how fucking precarious your house is. It's very bad.
I want a paper airplane to level that fucking place.
So this guy also made a bunch of tights. He like airbrushed tights and made the tights. Yeah. So that's a very specific thing, and they would be a few $100s a pop for some of them, and more the more complicated they are. Like those robes we've talked about, the guys, Macho Man, Ric Flair, these crazy robes they come out with back in the day, 5, 7, 10 grand they were spending out of their pockets in the 80s on those robes because that's their whole presentation. And this guy even said Chris was real generous. When he'd give him some tights, whatever price he quoted him, Chris would give him an extra $100 on there as a tip. Shit like that. So Chris had recently been moved to the ECW roster, which WWE owned at this point. They put him in because he's kind of an original ECW guy, and it wasn't doing well, and they're trying to bring attention to it by putting a major star in it. That's how it works.
He was a champion.
So this guy said, what do you think about that? Chris said, as long as I can wrestle, that's all I care about. It's all good. I don't give a shit. It's fine. By the way, Chris would take Daniel to meet this guy sometimes. Would you take your kid to meet the guy who was arrested
No.
for sexually exploiting a minor? I think I'm
No.
leaving Daniel home on that one. No.
Especially if you have an ex-wife. She can use that against you anywhere.
I would say so. So anyway, they talked at the McDonald's for a while and all that shit. This Rawls guy, he mentioned he was working a lot, and he's real tired. He goes, I'm just kind of tired. He said, Chris perked up, and he said, I know what to do. You're tired? This is what you do. I have a formula. Check this out. What you get is a mixture of this. You got to mix them together. Goodies headache powder, Red Bull energy drink, and some Yellow Jackets.
What?
Yeah. Basically, Yellow Jackets are, every time the FDA bans whatever, truckers buy at a gas station counter that pills that keep them up, whenever they ban that, then they come out with something new. This is whatever iteration of this is. Okay. So he says, you mix the three of these together and you are fucking ready to go. You're wired.
It's legal speak.
Apparently, yeah. So he said, yeah, they sell it all over here. And he said, Chris said, no matter how tired I am, it makes me feel like Superman. So,
I don't want that.
Yeah, this guy said, and I quote, Chris insisted that I get some goodies with Red Bull and Yellow Jackets right away. There was a BP service station across the way, and he said BP carried Yellow Jackets. He told me to follow him there in my car, but they didn't have any. Then Chris said he was sure he'd find them at the BP closer to his house, and I'll call you back when I do. And then he took off. Okay. And this guy went, wow, he's fucking wired, and that's why, I guess.
That guy's real busy.
Yeah. So that day, this is that day he talks to a guy on the phone, a salesman at a local Hummer dealership about selling one of their Hummers. He ordered the pool cleaners out to come clean the pool and all that kind of shit. He talked to Nancy, who was at a Publix shopping for a cookout in the backyard. Pool guys showed up, and Chris was flipping meat on the grill. Daniel was out there with him. They're both wearing swim trunks, just having a nice night at home, right? That's Friday, June 22nd. Now, Friday, June 22nd, 2007, records show at 9:25 p.m. the 411 information, if you're not from the United States, if you 411 is for information to get a number, that processed a request from the Benoit home phone for the number of the Fayetteville police. Now, what they gave them was a non-emergency number that didn't really go anywhere. They didn't even give them like an emergency number. So, and anyway, they didn't call that number. So at 9:32, and also they have to call the county sheriff for this place. It's not in the town proper. Yeah, so at 9:32 p.m., the records show that there was a call from the Benoit home phone to Holly, the next door neighbor, to her cell. Holly consonant cell. So to her cell, and then another a minute later when she didn't answer, and then another at 10 p.m. and she didn't answer. No voice messages were left here. None. So 3 days later, though, after this whole deal here, Holly says she remembers the phone ringing on Friday night, and it was like, oh, it's late, I'm not going to answer. And she obviously is regretful of that here.
Guilt-ridden, yeah.
So Saturday, June 23rd, 2007, the next day, it's a WWE has a house show in Beaumont, Texas. They have a pay-per-view the next night in Houston for ECW called Vengeance. Saturday night house show in Beaumont, Texas.
Oh, Beaumont, yeah.
Beaumont. 8:30 Saturday morning, Chris left Hardcore Holly a voice message. He said, this is Holly, the next door neighbor. He said, is Daniel supposed to be at horse camp today? If so, he can't make it because he's sick. Okay. Holly took the message in the afternoon, and she was like, that's weird. Nancy knows when the horse camp is. Why didn't he just ask Nancy? She knows it's only during the week. It's not on weekdays. And she said also it's weird because Chris is, quote, somewhat antisocial. So it's pretty weird that he would call me to initiate a conversation. He would have Nancy call me. Yeah. Why would he do that? So at 3:01 p.m., Holly called Chris back. They talked for 9 minutes, which is a lengthy conversation, honestly. Think about 9 minutes of talking to someone you don't really know that well.
That's so long.
Long time. Chris asked if anyone in her family had been sick, because he said he's asking because Daniel had been up all night, with what he thinks is food poisoning, but that's why he's asking them. Maybe it's the flu, He said he felt bad that he could do nothing for poor little Daniel. He was so sick. He said Nancy also has food poisoning, but it's not as bad as Chris's or as Daniel's. So Chris said he's fine, feeling great, but Daniel and Nancy are going to lay low for a few days and try to get over this because they were, at one point he'll say they were vomiting blood.
Wow.
That's a lot of food poisoning.
That's a hospital case of food poisoning.
Yeah, when I see blood, that's hospital time. Blood from somewhere where it shouldn't be, that's a hospital.
Right. If you're bleeding and I can't see what you're bleeding from.
That could be anywhere.
Yeah.
I need to know. So it could be your fucking inside of your eyeballs for all I know. I got to check this out.
I don't know what gets to the stomach or how.
I'm not a doctor, as we've covered. GED, remember? So he said that they were going to lie low, and she said he sounded very calm and normal, just like, they're going to be sick and it's all good. She said later on that she's like, oh, Chris was discouraging me from calling Nancy or coming over. That's what he was doing. They're real sick. Stay away. Because she talked to Nancy all the time, apparently. Another guy named Michael Parker, he'd just been released after a tryout with WWE, so he just didn't make it. He left Chris a message on his cell about wrestling shit at 1:57. Chris called him back Saturday afternoon, left a return message, which this guy will save forever. And in this one, his words, he sounds slurred. Chris's words sound slurred. He doesn't sound sharp, or there's something wrong. And Chris says, quote, I'm talking shit. I don't know what the details of your situation are off the top of my head. It sounds like you got shafted over, and that really fucking sucks. Nothing's better than experience, and you've got that. Hope you're doing well. I've missed you the last couple of weeks. Wanted to point that out. When you can, give me a call.
Oh, boy.
So he said that. That's normal. Then at 3:30 p.m., he sends a message to Chavo Guerrero. And he says, Chavo Guerrero Jr., the wrestler. And he says, and this is from the police report, says a coworker received a voice message from Benoit, that's Chavo Guerrero. The message stated that he missed his flight and overslept and would be late to the WWE live event. He'd have to take the next plane to Houston and drive to Beaumont. So it's going to be a while.
I'm still in Atlanta.
Then he said at the end, I love you, in a very weird way, which is strange. So now Chavo said he was unsettled by the tone and demeanor of the call was weird. The over-the-top I love you was weird. He's like, it was very weird. So Chavo called him back 12 minutes later, and he just left a voicemail saying, just call me. Benoit returned the call, but Chavo couldn't pick it up. So
he missed it too.
Yep. In his message, Benoit said that, he said, I'm just having a real stressful day due to Daniel and Nancy being sick with food poisoning, and it's just a lot of stress. So, whatever. Sorry. 3:44 p.m., Benoit called Guerrero back, saying that he didn't answer the call because he was on the phone with Delta Airlines changing his flight. And that's when he said, I've had a stressful day. All right, man, if you need to talk, whatever. That's when he talks to Guerrero, and they get back, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the conversation, he says, Chavo, I love you, which is he said, the guys will say, I love you all. They'll be like, hey, I love you, man, but they're not like, Chavo, I love you. That's, you know what I mean?
Specific to you.
And very listen, remember this moment. Mm-hmm. This isn't casual. And Guerrero will later on say that Benoit sounded off when he talked to him. He said especially the emphasis on I love you. It was a very strong emphasis. So then they called him, the office calls him, WWE office calls him, and he says that, a referee that gives him a ride from the airport all the time calls him, and he said that, that Nancy's vomiting blood and Daniel's vomiting also. So I'm at the hospital with them.
Oh.
That's what I'm doing. So he doesn't show up for the shot. Eventually they said, listen, by the time you get in, it's going to be too late for the show anyway. Just come in and, get some rest and get ready for the pay-per-view tomorrow. Just do that. How about that? So, that's how that all goes. And by the way, during this Saturday, he does some computer searches. He does computer searches for Elijah on Wikipedia. And apparently Chris went to that page at 402. Okay. Book of Elijah, whatever it is, a Book of Kings, chapter 17, New Testament Book of Kings, chapter 17, tells the story of Elijah being sent to a widow. The son of the widow dies, and Elijah takes the child from his mother and stretched out on him 3 times in his own bed. Elijah pleads to God to restore the boy's soul to his body. Yahweh listened to the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he was revived.
Okay.
He's looking up resurrections, is what he's looking up. Okay. How do I resurrect my son? That's what he's looking up.
I've done something terrible. Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ. So, yeah, that's what he's looking up. He looks that all up there, and that's one of the only things he looks up. Later on, obviously, everybody theorizes, why else would he look that up if the only time he's looking that up is now? She also, later on, we heard, and this we don't know if this is true or not, but Nancy's sister will say that that the search history on Benoit's computer showed that he had researched quickest and easiest way to break a neck as well. So Sunday night, June 24, 2007, is pay-per-view, ECW Vengeance pay-per-view. Chris is scheduled to win the ECW title this night.
Right.
Okay?
He's going to be
champ. He's going to be champ of ECW. He continues talking and texting with people throughout Saturday. Sunday afternoon, people are still texting him and all this. They don't know what's happened at all. Chris Jericho texted him and said, just heard that Wellington died of a heart attack this weekend, who is a wrestler they knew from Canada. So on Sunday at 5, 5 text messages were sent to coworkers between the hours of 3:51 and 3:58 a.m.
4 o'clock in the morning?
4 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning, Saturday night, Chris is sending text messages to Chavo, sending messages to all sorts of shit, right? Yeah. 5 different text messages from Chris and Nancy's phones, by the way. All of the messages are, my physical address is so-and-so, so-and-so. The dogs are locked here. The side door by the garage is open. That's the same. That's a text he sends to everybody, which is really fucking weird. Guerrero, Chavo says he got woken up by the texts, looked at him and was like, what the fuck? What does this make sense? And he was like, he said in his hazy stage, he said he thought maybe that like when you're on planes and stuff, and we know this, sometimes a text doesn't come through. Right. And then sometimes like a day later, you'll get a text and you're like, what are you talking about? And someone's like, I sent that to you a day and a half ago. You're like, how the fuck did it get lost? But when you're traveling and your phone's in and out of service, that happens sometimes. So he was confused and was like, oh, this must be from like another time, or I don't know. Why the fuck would he send me on my address? And he went back to sleep rather than calling Chris and going, bro, why are you sending me your address at fucking 3:30 in the morning? So anyway, the flight that he's supposed to be on arrives at the airport Sunday morning in Houston at 8 o'clock, and he's not on it.
There's no Chris. Yeah.
No Chris. Late Sunday morning, actually, though, Benoit called WWE's talent relations office stating that his son was vomiting and Nancy and they were at the hospital, and that he's going to be taking a later flight to Houston where he's going to go up against CM Punk for the championship here. So that's what he's doing. That's his plan. The sheriff's logs also during this point has known omissions of phone calls that several phone calls made by John Laurinaitis, who's Johnny Ace, one of the talent guys for WWE. These were at 4:27, 4:46, and 6:25 p.m., 8:25 p.m. during the show, and 11:56 p.m. afterward. There were numerous other calls from WWE cell phones, plus 2 others from cell phone numbers in Stamford, which is where WWE is, Connecticut. 4:21 p.m., a phone call from a cell phone in Florida. Here he gets that. 4:32, a landline in California, who they believe it's Rey Mysterio for that one. 4:40, the referee Scott Armstrong. Here calling them about all of this, saying what time do you land and all this type of shit. 4:43 and 6:26 from a WWE cell phone as well. 7:50 from a phone at the Toyota Center in Houston. Several calls from Canada. His ex-wife calls. One of his old friends from Canada calls him. No calls from Chavo Guerrero during this time, though.
What?
Which is weird. And no calls besides the what time do you land from the Armstrong guy either. Which is very interesting here. Now, that's during the afternoon. Here comes Monday, June 24th, 2007. Chris doesn't show up for this pay-per-view, so that's why that's why they call him. Now, first of all, we have to say that Chris never doesn't show up for anything ever.
Yeah.
He worked with a broken neck for a year before he got it. Like he will work forever, and he does not no show. He's just not one of those guys. Professionalism is first and foremost.
And the company had a car ready to pick him up, and no answer, no call, no show.
He's not a guy to miss a house show, never mind a pay-per-view. You don't miss a pay-per-view. That's crazy. So
when he knows he's about to be champion.
Yeah, and he's the main event of the pay-per-view. He's not missing
matters
that.
To everything.
Yep. So Monday, June 24th, or Monday, June 25th, I'm sorry, the WWE, they arrive in Corpus Christi for WWE Raw, which is to take place the next night. So they haven't heard from Benoit in over 24 hours now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So Guerrero, allegedly here, shows John Laurinaitis the text messages that they had received saying, here's my address and all this kind of shit. So the WWE contacts their security guy. They call that's when the WWE calls Benoit's home at 11 a.m. on Monday. Okay. A little more than an hour later, their security guy, this Fagan guy, calls someone in the sheriff's office who told him that you got to ask for you got to call 911 and ask for a welfare check if you want to check up on him. So they end up doing that. At 1:41 p.m., the 911 dispatcher tells Fagan that the Benoit's front gate is locked and that the officers are being deterred by 2 German Shepherds barking at them. Okay, so that's going on. So he says, well, the message, this is the Fagan guy, WWE guy, he says the message that we got, like I said, he left a message at 3 o'clock in the morning for another wrestler. The gate's open. So he's like, what the fuck here? What's going on? So Fagan didn't understand that there's 2 gates. There's the door, the garage, side door to the garage is open, not the main gate. It's a different thing. Either way, there's dogs running around. So what the fuck? His next call to 911 here is at 2:13 p.m., and he reported that that they had just gotten back to him with more info. This is Chavo Guerrero. Basically, the cops are like, how do we get in around these dogs? Is there anybody that we can, call to deal with these dogs? At one point, this Fagan guy says, can't they taser them, put them to sleep?
Shoot the goddamn things.
Hey, fuck you. How's that?
Wow, man.
Jesus, how about we just ask around and see if anyone can grab them first before we start killing dogs?
Got a milk bone? I mean, what are we talking about?
We'll put some cyanide in it. It'll be great. So Chavo tells them that Chris has a neighbor that takes care of the dogs when they leave. So maybe ask her. So they go and they contact Holly. Yes. Poor Holly. Jesus Christ. Ooh. They call Holly. Holly comes over. So she gets over there. This is 2:45 p.m. And Holly walks in, takes the dogs, goes, brings them inside. She runs out of the house.
Oh, boy.
And says Daniel and Nancy have been murdered. They've killed the family.
She saw them both.
Screaming. Well, we'll talk about it here. 1:35. We'll get it in detail in a second. Deputy Donna Monday and Lieutenant Larry Alden and Lieutenant Larry Friday had pulled up to the front of the Benoit property here, and they get there, and they said that you could scale the fence. This is the thing with the dogs. So anyway, Holly goes in, takes the dogs in. They got the dogs, by the way, to protect Daniel from people, which is the crazy part here. And the night before, the dogs had gotten out of where they usually were because Holly was going to made a note to give to them to complain about, hey, the dogs got out there barking all night. I could hear them. They're really annoying, right? The dogs, by the way, their names are Carney and High Spot, which are wrestling terms. So anyway, she puts the German Shepherds in through the unlocked door on the side of the garage leading into the house. Short flight of stairs to the mudroom. That's where the dogs' kennels are. Right. She puts the dogs in the kennels. Anyway, it's a warm afternoon here. It's June. And low 80s, but Georgia 80s, so a little humid. You want that central AC on, but it's off in the house.
Oh, boy.
And they said there was an odor in the air. They said it was just like a stagnant something. They couldn't put it out on
3
it. So,
days or something.
Yeah, Holly calls out Nancy, Daniel, just, calling out throughout the house. She went up 2 flights of steps to the upper level to look in Daniel's bedroom. And in the bedroom, there is, he's got, it's all his dad in there. It's posters of his dad, wrestling figures of his dad, championship T-shirts of his championship belts, like all this shit in there. He idolizes his dad. Daniel is wearing a long-sleeve blue SpongeBob t-shirt and pajama pants with soccer and baseball on them, like a little kid would wear.
Yep.
Lying in bed on his stomach, left cheek on the pillow, overturned, down covers, like someone tucked him in. Next to him were 2 stuffed Winnie the Pooh doll, stuffed animals, and a My First Bible, a children's edition of the New Testament. They were propped on his hand, which was out, like it was like in his hand. His right leg was bent, touching his foot was touching his left knee there. She could see, she thought Daniel was sleeping at first.
Right.
And walked in closer and saw that his face was discolored. There was dried up foam around his mouth. And, obviously this kid isn't sleeping. So she freaks out and runs down the stairs. On the way down the stairs, she gets down the stairs. The next thing she sees is she knows there's a home office that Nancy hangs out in and watches TV over here. So she figures she'll stop over there on the way out. That room, also same shit, all sorts of wrestling shit in there. Nancy is lying on her right side on the hardwood floor, a red fringed throw rug covering everything except her head and her feet. She faced the wall, sitting between the sitting area and the wet bar. They said a pillow askew, leaning against a messy. Her hair is up. She's matted down. Another Bible. This is a regular adult version. Here is laying next to her as well. She's in a white tank top, blue striped pajama bottoms. Her hands are tied together behind her back at shoulder blade level with a coaxial cable.
Way high.
Way high. He fucking cranked her hands behind her back. Then a second cable along with a small white rope extended from there, wrapped around her neck. And her feet were bound with the electric cord, with the cord from an electric charger secured by black tape. So she was, this is fucking horrible. Tied up, bound, strangled, and fucking taped and everything. It's disgusting. So yeah, her face was black and blue. Her stomach was bloated already. And her arms are already in an advanced state of decomposition here.
Wow.
So if you're Holly, you're like, holy shit. Yeah. You are hot tailing it the fuck out of there. Hightail, whatever you're doing. You're getting the fuck out of there. So, high? I think it's high.
It's hightail, yeah.
You're getting out. You're hot footing out of there and hightailing.
I think
hot footing
better.
Hot footing and hightailing it out of there. I like hot tailing too. Yeah. Sounds like there's someone on your tail and you're running from them.
It's on fire. You better get away from it.
So she runs out fucking to the officers. They say, stay in the driveway while we go inside. Where are they, first of all? She tells them. So they do that. They're in there for a while, though, and she gets so scared she calls 911 and says, they asked me to hop the fence and fix the dogs, and tells them the whole story, and the boy and the mom are dead, and they went in there. She said, I didn't go down in the basement for some reason. I don't know where. I didn't see Mr. Benoit. He might be dead, too. Where are the cops, basically? They've been in there for so long. Maybe Chris has got them or something. Are they okay? So 911 had to radio them, and they said, no, we're okay. And then they told her, no, they're okay in there. Don't worry about it. So
tell her to mind her business.
Fuck. So the cops were in the basement at this point where they found Chris. He was sitting upright on a bench facing a Magnum Fitness weight machine. He's got no shirt on, wearing red gym shorts and socks and sneakers. Left leg was extended, right leg bent at the knee, foot tucked under his left thigh, like one of those, like you're sitting on it. He had a black nylon weight machine cable around his neck, and a strip of white towel was underneath it, to keep it from being too uncomfortable. You don't want to do that.
Don't want to chase.
He was being held in the sitting position by a cable, which went through all the pulleys and shit, and had 150 pounds of weight on it from the machine. The weight also he also put 2 40-pound dumbbells on top of that.
Wow.
And the weight was lifted, and Benoit still holding the whole thing together. Jesus Christ. He didn't break his neck or anything. He just choked to death.
He just strangled himself.
He just strangled himself to death, which is
That's
fucking
brutal, man.
It's as brutal as what he did to everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
At some point during his dying, though, he had to go, God damn it, that wasn't enough.
Yeah, no shit. He had 2 cell phones with him, his and Nancy's, some green tea nearby, and an empty bottle of Dynamite Vineyards 2004 Merlot, which he probably bought because it's called dynamite, and he likes the dynamite, I guarantee you. So no signs of forced entry or anything like that, obviously. They ended up 19 different other personnel come into the house, fan out across the house. They're looking for everything. Animal control takes custody of the dogs and several kittens. They were found in one bathroom. They have to notify the family and all this type of shit. Now, by 6 p.m., World Wrestling Entertainment puts on their website, WWE was informed today by authorities in Fayette County, Georgia, that WWE superstar Chris Benoit, his wife Nancy, and son were found dead in their home. Authorities are investigating, but no other details are available at this time. So they did that. The police notified the WWE of the bodies at 4:15 p.m. Okay? Informing them they discovered the 3 bodies at the Benoit home, and now it's considered a major crime scene, the home. And the Fagan guy kept checking back and forth with 911, calling down there as well. So at 4:41, WWE vice president here, he calls 911 to leave a message for a sheriff's lieutenant. He said that the lieutenant had relayed a request for certain information in the Benoit investigation, and this all goes on. So this guy, the vice president, said that he had returned this guy's voice messages, but then they were calling 911 even though he already talked to a cop. It's very weird. So the way this works is, anyway, they never found any evidence of anybody like Chris with a broken neck. He strangled to death, which is why the search for easily break a neck is weird. Maybe he thought he couldn't because his neck's bigger than his head, so maybe that would have been hard.
Yeah, maybe he just. I think he fucked up. Mm-hmm. Perhaps he was on drugs, too much wine. Who knows?
We'll talk about our theories here, but anyway, in a second. One other thing is apparently there was blood tissue samples from the bodies at the scene. One of the technicians observed a discolored smudge on Chris's left index finger near the knuckle on the thumb side and thought it was a friction burn from tying the knots on the cable that bound Nancy. Also saw dried blood on the bridge of Chris's nose and in the nail bed of his right index finger, which if you made your finger bleed and you itch your nose, you have blood on your nose now. Yeah. So they said that the tissue samples weren't collected during autopsy because they could no longer find the areas of blood. They think they were maybe rubbed off went away by moisture in the humid air down there, or rubbed off by the body bag rubbing on his nose. Dried blood. It makes sense, you know. So they collect paperwork, all sorts of shit. There was folders in Nancy's office, financial records, household, shit, credit card statements, insurance, tax documents, everything you could imagine in here. Fucking fan mail. Inside a small refrigerator in the office's wet bar, they found several small bottles labeled recombinant human growth hormone from a Chinese company called Gene Science Pharmaceutical Company, Ltd. Uh-oh. The bag with the growth hormone also contained syringes. So they took a desktop computer from the office and did all of that. The cell phones near the body and the home answering machines were impounded. Evidence shit they're doing, basically. They ended up in the upstairs master bedroom. They spotted 2 boxes with prescription labels from Jones Pharmacy in Fayetteville. The prescribing physician was Phil Aston, the doctor he sees every once in a while. They contained March and May 2007 prescriptions of testosterone. That night and the next day, they would locate supplies of many other prescription medications for both Chris and Nancy, including Somas, muscle relaxer, hydrocodone, which is a painkiller, Xanax, and then naproxen, which is just like Aleve.
Steroid, yeah.
Naproxen is Aleve. It's anti-inflammatory drug.
Isn't that steroid for isn't it? Oh, you're right. You're right.
It might be in steroids to calm something down.
I don't mean
it's not a steroid.
I just mean like a prescribed steroid. What is that? I forget what that shit's called. It doesn't matter. It's not it.
If you're over 50 and play tennis, you take naproxen for your fucking sore shoulder or whatever.
It's high dose ibuprofen.
Yeah, that's all. Except naproxen. It's a different thing. It's a different drug. So Ambien as well, also Zoloft there, and Cymbalta, which is also an antidepressant. And they also say they found additional things, the family later on, because within like very short amount of time, Nancy's family just moves into the house.
Really?
Which is really weird.
Into the house that she was killed in?
Yeah, I guess they're just taking possession of it. I don't know what, but they said they found additional steroids, syringes, and other prescriptions and everything else in a suitcase in a walk-in closet somewhere buried. They had another big stash apparently there. So yeah, they didn't release all of the computer information to the public. They said only the relevant shit basically here. So the WWE that night has to decide what to do. They have a Monday Night Raw going on live that night.
Oh, this is ugly.
What the fuck do we do? The weird part is this was supposed to be the continuation of the storyline of Vince McMahon is dead.
Oh, no.
His limo got blown up, and it was just like a, who killed Vince McMahon storyline. It was stupid. And they that's what they're supposed to do, but they obviously cancel it, and they cancel the whole show. They're supposed to have an audience full and everything else there, and instead on the website they release a statement saying Chris was beloved among his fellow superstars and was a favorite among WWE fans for his unbelievable athleticism and wrestling ability. He always took great pride in his performance and always showed respect for the business he loved, for his peers, and toward his fans. This is a terrible tragedy and an unbearable loss. WWE extends its sincere condolences and prayers to the surviving members of the Benoit family and their loved ones at the time of this tragedy.
Oh, boy.
Now,
infinite. That's the ultimate. Get it right before getting it first.
You get it first before getting it right. That's what they're doing.
But I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I got you. The other way.
It's the ultimate lesson in get it right before getting it first.
Yeah, exactly. So they start out empty arena, and it's Vince McMahon in the ring with a microphone. He says, "Good evening. Tonight, this arena here in Corpus Christi, Texas, was to have been filled to capacity with enthusiastic WWE fans. Tonight's storyline was to have been the alleged demise of my character, Mr. McMahon. However, in reality, WWE superstar, his wife Nancy, or superstar Chris Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their son Daniel are dead. Their bodies were discovered this afternoon in their new suburban Atlanta home. The authorities are undergoing an investigation. We here in the WWE can only offer our condolences to the extended family of Chris Benoit. And the only other thing we can do at this moment is tonight pay tribute to Chris Benoit."
Oh, Vince.
"We will offer you some of the most memorable moments in Chris's professional life, and you'll hear comments from his peers, those here, his fellow performers, and those who loved Chris and admired him so much. So tonight will be a 3-hour tribute to one of the greatest WWE superstars of all time. Tonight will be a tribute to Chris Benoit."
There's a 3-hour tribute to
this doesn't go over
to
well.
Security Systems Man of the Year, Dennis Rader.
Wow. Holy fucking shit.
Oh, boy.
For the Jesus Christ. The what the hell is it? The DeKalb County Junior JC's Man of the Year, John Wayne Gacy. Everybody. Give it a big round of applause for John. And he clowns for sick children. Nice guy. So, okay. Now, that's the first night. The next night, it's completely different.
Now we've got information, and we fucked up.
The problem is they knew what happened well before this went on the air.
Really?
That's the problem. Yeah, they knew what, and they're trying to say we didn't know about it till this time, and by then it was too late, but they knew about it before that, and that's the big point. They put out, WWE puts out one timeline of how it happened and what they knew when they knew it. It's like Watergate at this point. And then later on, they put out another timeline that's not exactly the same as their first timeline and makes them seem less knowing and shit like that. So now, Tuesday night, Vince McMahon's standing there again, okay? And he says, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Last night on Monday Night Raw, the WWE presented a special tribute show recognizing the career of Chris Benoit. However, now, some 26 hours later, the facts of this horrible tragedy are now apparent. Therefore, other than my comments, there will be no mention of Mr. Benoit's name tonight. On the contrary, tonight's show will be dedicated to everyone who has been affected by this terrible incident. This evening marks the first step of the healing process. Tonight, WWE performers will do what they do better than anyone else in the world: entertain you. No more. And that's he kind of became known as, like, his name will never be spoken here guy. It's fucking so stupid.
He who we don't mention his name.
Yep. He whose name shall not be mentioned. So toxicology reports here. Jesus. The toxicology reports they found hydrocodone and Xanax in Nancy's system. She had a blood alcohol level of 0.184, so that's a little over twice the legal limit, but she's in her own house. But they don't know by the way, if this could be raised by the decomposition process. So they don't know after a couple days, 3 days possibly. They don't know if 48 hours. They don't know if that could raise the level. So that's not an accurate reading. Right. She had something in there, but they don't know if that's an accurate reading. Daniel had Xanax at elevated levels in his system.
Really?
They drugged him so he wouldn't struggle, so he wouldn't have to hear his son beg for his life.
Oh, that's fucked up, man.
That's some pussy
crazy.
Shit. Yep, that's what it is. That's fucking gross. Chris Benoit is positive for Xanax and hydrocodone. Both were at therapeutic levels. The only steroid found in his system was testosterone, which was at a 59-to-1 level.
Holy.
Which is 10 times the amount you should have, basically. It's a lot more. He's always on. That's what she's saying. He's always doing this. He's constantly on this level because he has to stay that size, or else he's not going to have anything else. No evidence of GHB was found in the bodies, which was initially suspected because wrestlers use GHB a lot, and that's an easy way to put someone to sleep. So they said, they asked the doctor, is it because of the testosterone why he freaked out? And the guy's like, what the fuck should I know? I don't know.
I don't know this guy.
No idea. They said that Daniel's body was just starting to show signs of decomposition. Due to the small amount of urine they were able to get from his body, they were unable to do a test for levels of human growth hormone. And we'll talk about why they would want to test him for human growth hormone in a moment here. They said the drugs in Nancy's body were therapeutic levels. However, they could have been lower due to the decomposition process. The doctor also said he wouldn't be surprised if she was taking the medications because of previous surgeries and pain. So there's also that. They said that there was clear evidence, the doctor said, that Daniel Benoit was sedated before he was killed. He says there's no evidence of any other illegal steroids in his body except the testosterone. And the testosterone could reveal that he was being treated for what we said. He's got a prescription for all this bullshit. So he also says it would be they made sure to keep saying that you can't pin down Nancy's blood alcohol level, so she might not have been that much alcohol in her at all. So they said a suicide note was not discovered in the initial investigation, but later on it was discovered.
Where the hell was it?
In a Bible that had been among his shit. He wrote it out and stuck it in the fucking Bible, just stuck it in the pages of the Bible. Wow. And no one knew. That ended up going with his 2 children in Canada, and his ex-wife ended up with that. And I guess Benoit's father ended up with his Bible, and he said that Chris left a handwritten note in there saying, "I'm preparing to leave this earth." So it was a suicide note. They found one. They don't think it's her only one. That's the thing. She has a safe deposit box, Nancy does, at Wachovia Bank branch in Peachtree City. And in there they find a trove of pictures of Nancy with facial bruises.
Just beaten, yeah.
However, they determined, based on the period of the pictures were taken, these are from the Kevin Sullivan marriage.
Wow.
These are what she was saving from Kevin Sullivan doing this to her.
Unbelievable.
So we don't know if the Benoit ones are somewhere else. So that's what we have. They've never been found, so we don't know. They had a memorial for for Nancy and Daniel in Daytona Beach, not till July because it was just so raw. They were cremated here, and they were placed in starfish-shaped urns. Chris is also cremated, but no one knows. It's not been publicly revealed what happened to him. Now, the doctor that's been prescribing him all these tests, to all this fucking testosterone here, the Aston guy, with a search warrant, the Drug Enforcement Agency raided his joint here and stayed there collecting all sorts of shit. It was a 4-hour raid. Aston told the media he prescribed testosterone to Benoit in the past, and then obviously it was all found at his house and all shit like that. So the State Medical Examiners Board also had taken action against him in May of 2001 because his physician profile failed to say that he had been disciplined in 2001. Mm-hmm. So his privileges at a medical center had been suspended for 3 months for reasons related to competence or character. Well, those are both bad for a doctor.
Yeah.
According to their here, I guess the medical board fined him $500 and ordered him to correct his profile. So now there's a diary here, apparently, that they find later on. I guess Eddie had told him to keep a diary. That's why he keeps a diary. So during this weekend, at some point, he threw out a bunch of shit in an outside trash can.
Okay.
And in that was his diary that he kept after Eddie's death here. Somehow they didn't get it at first. And the Nancy's family said they might have attempted to dispose of the diary because it was probably too unpleasant to confront their grief. But they didn't here. They decided it was better to whatever. They said perhaps they also didn't want it to strengthen Chris's side of the family's case that he suffered from dementia and wasn't responsible for his actions. Mm. They wanted to be mad at him, which makes sense. So the diary includes rambling biblical references as well as passages directly addressed to Guerrero in the Beyond.
Yuck.
Yeah. Other than that, he talks about his father read a passage on a TV show or a radio interview or something. Said, "My wife Nancy bought me a diary, and I have started to write letters to Eddie. It may sound crazy, but that's how I'm coping." That's how he wrote
dead
that.
Eddie?
Writing to dead Eddie. Right into Deddy.
God.
Not good. So the WWE, now Jerry McDivitt, they're a longtime attorney. He's the guy who got Vince McMahon off steroid charges, all that shit. His account of, he says that he was complaining that they let the family move in too early and there's all this evidence shit. The WWE does not contact Nancy's family at all.
Ever?
They don't even say, sorry, nothing. She worked for WCW for a long time. She's in the business. You call.
Yeah, but
someone calls.
Vince was just on TV. He said sorry.
That's one of those, someone calls. If you're going to get yelled at, you take it on the chin. You do it because it's the right thing to do. December 2007, WWE rejects a deal offered by the estate of Chris Benoit, setting the stage for a possible legal battle here. WWE balked at paying $2 million to Benoit's 2 surviving children from a previous marriage in recognition of their father's contributions to the company. They said, no, we're not doing it. So Michael Benoit, Chris's dad, who's overseeing the estate, is talking about lawsuits and all this type of shit. So they're trying to say, WWE is trying to say, if we do that, then we're saying we're responsible for his steroid use and all this type of shit, brain damage, you fucking name it here. So I guess it would have, just would have went to his children, this whole deal. So they said, had the WWE, who is this, the lawyer? Yeah. Had the WWE taken the slightest interest in its wrestlers before it became the object of interest of district attorneys and the Congress, there is little doubt that Chris Benoit and his family would still be with us today. That's what they said here. Now, the State Boxing Commission is the governing body that regulates the state's boxing and MMA as well as ticket brokers. Pro wrestling also falls under that, but WWE has been exempt thanks to a 2005 statute that they wrote themselves, I'm sure, and fucking paid somebody to put in there because that's what they do in all these states, that excluded groups with a total asset of more than $25 million from having to fucking be regulated, basically.
What?
You have to regulate all the shit ones, but if we're big, you should just trust that we do everything right.
Clearly,
that's what that
we're
means.
Successful in doing the right thing.
Yeah, and we're not taking all this money because we're not spending it on the shit we should be spending it on. Here comes the WWE trying to put different theories out there. Mm-hmm. We don't know if it started with this. This isn't where this theory started, but they set it on fire. This is like some fucking dipshit on a message board says something, and then some asshole on a particular cable news station gives it life, and then people think it's true. You know what I mean? So pick your cable news station. Doesn't matter. So anyway, that is that Daniel had something called Fragile X syndrome. Okay? That was the cause of the domestic problems in the Benoit family, was that Daniel was ill, and that they fought so much over all of this, and the stress of Daniel being ill is all of that. None of this shit from the past mentions Daniel, barely at all, except, hey, how come he didn't call Daniel back?
Right.
That's not the deal here. But they even say that because they found needle marks on Daniel's arm, okay, that they were wondering about. People suggested, not going to say the WWE, it was also suggested, we'll say, that the needle marks on the arms were a result of HGH being injected into him by the family because they were worried about him being undersized due to Fragile X.
So
Fragile X I don't know much about, but it's described as like a form of autism that affects the physical stuff as well, with much smaller kids and all that. Like, that's what they were saying.
But don't worry, HGH corrects it.
Yes. So Chris Jericho then came out and said that from his own research, everything fits Daniel to a T all across the board. So he backed them up, and he was their best friend. So everyone just went, oh, that's probably what it was then. So Jericho said later on that, because no one knew that Daniel had this, if this was the case. Jericho said if Chris had decided that he wanted to keep it to himself, you wouldn't be able to pry that out of him with anything. Anyway, turns out that Daniel didn't have Fragile X. And Chris said, but at the time it made sense because I was grasping at straws. It makes sense for him trying to figure out why his friend fucking did this. That makes sense. Yeah. But they found all of his medical records, no mention of any pre-existing mental or physical ailments. Teachers reported that he was on par with other students, not held back, not small, not weird, not, physically ill, nothing of these nature. He was just a kid that ran around and played, and he was fine.
Healthy, smart kid.
Yeah, he's fine. So anyway, that's all of this shit, and that it's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. And you feel like the family, too, while all of these theories are being bandied about during the time that this happened, the family's got to feel like shit on both sides.
Grieved so hard.
And even the Benoit family, they want to believe that Chris couldn't help it, and he was brain damaged, and that's what they want to believe. And then the other side doesn't want to. I would want to believe that. I'd want to believe that he couldn't control himself, and he was some.
Regardless of the side you're on, you'd love
that's
that.
what I mean.
You'd love that.
If I was Nancy's family, I would want that to be the case, because then I would say, I've known this guy for 10 years. Right. Is my judgment that terrible?
Right. Did I miss something?
So, I mean, you feel bad. You really do. I feel awful for these people. I really, really do. But not nearly as bad, Jimmy, as I feel for Chris Benoit.
Really?
Senior support engineer at Park Place Technologies in Massachusetts.
Is that right?
Chris Benoit, quote, problem solver, process optimizer, 7 times Salesforce certified in the greater Hartford area.
I don't like problem solver.
Problem solver, yeah. Unless your problem's your wife and kid. I don't want to. Chris Benoit, vice president at Anchor Auto Group in Rhode Island. Chris Benoit, business education teacher. Oh, no, not a teacher. And also in Massachusetts. And finally, and these are always the people I feel the worst for, Chris Benoit, real estate agent in Vermont. Nope.
Unreal.
How you doing? Chris Benoit. Nice to meet you. Next fucking day, I'm Chris Benoit. I am not doing this.
You call me Chris B.
Chrissy B. That's all I want to be known as. So the WWE immediately wants to take any attention off concussions or steroids, especially steroids, because that was a thing in the past that stung them once before. They announced that Benoit, the first thing they said is he passed his last drug test in April, which was 2 months ago.
Right.
So he couldn't have done it since then, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he had an exemption for the steroids anyway, so it didn't fucking matter. And they knew that as well as anybody, but they didn't tell the fucking press that. They just said he passed his drug test, pal.
You weren't destined for it.
Yep. They put the wellness program in place after Eddie Guerrero's death and then ignored it completely, allegedly, because this happened. So, yeah, one of the guys here said that no one's real impressed with their testing procedures essentially is what they're saying here. They said they've seen guidelines. Brian Alvarez, who's a wrestling journalist, if you want to call it that, seen guidelines for the program and reported this. A wrestler can pass the doping test with a testosterone to epitestosterone ratio of 10-1, which is, I guess, double the standard. Under the rules, athletes are in violation. This is like the international rules.
Right.
They're in violation starting at 4-1. The average ratio is 1-1.
So 4 times the average, and that's when you're in violation?
No. That's when you're in violation in like international sports, 4-1. WWE allows 10-1.
Jesus.
Which is more than twice what the international. So it's ridiculous. And a wrestler who gets a positive test can be excused if he can get a doctor's note saying that it was justified. So you don't even have to have it ahead of time.
Right.
If you fail, you just get a doctor's note. So Kurt Angle, who we know plenty of, we did a whole episode about him. He said, "Well, I think one thing WWE and TNA needs is to do is step back and take a look and listen to the wrestlers. This is not WWE's fault, and this is not Vince McMahon's fault. Chris Benoit was responsible for his own actions." The last sentence is very true, and also the first one is not as true. So then he says, Chris chose his own career. He chose to stick with WWE when I am sure he could have went anywhere else, whether it be Japan or TNA, but Chris stuck with the grind. So he's saying he put himself in this situation, and that's what happens. So then they look at the brain stuff as well. They look at Chris's brain in 2010, and a group of doctors studied Chris Benoit's brain and found that he suffered from some serious CTE. Hardcore. Not wonderful at all. Really, really bad shit. They said one of the quotes was that it was like an 80-year-old man. Wow. Like an 80-year-old man with Alzheimer's. That's what his brain was like.
Inside and on the outside, a raging steroid freak, fully capable of hurting people.
Fully capable, physical, peak of his physical prowess and everything like that. So he had a lot going on in the brain. So that is not wonderful, obviously, there. And there's a whole deal here where Congress actually has hearings about it, whether WWE is fucking it's the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Commerce, and Vince McMahon declined to testify, even though they invited him. They did turn over 3,000 pages of documentation, and ultimately the congressional review amounted to nothing due to, in part, the part where it just didn't get pursued after that. That's what ended up happening. Yeah. Now, quickly, the study of the coverage is very, very interesting. Yeah. They did a whole collegiate course level study on the coverage of this case. Yeah. Okay, the WWE accused the media of sensationalizing steroids as part of the crime. However, the company was criticized after stating that steroids were not involved in the crime because they said that he passed his drug test, he's not on steroids, and then the toxicology report came out. He's on a shitload of testosterone, and he has a note from his mommy for you people. So they said that they concluded here that a better response from the company would have been to acknowledge the rumors of steroid abuse by Benoit, then wait until autopsy and toxicology reports were released before making statements on what could have triggered the murder-suicide. This study is to analyze a broader set of newspaper sources to identify how journalists framed the Benoit crime and to identify the frames that became prominent in the coverage. Okay, check this out. Now, newspapers ran varying numbers of stories and different types of stories. In the study, there's 15 New York Times articles, 46 articles in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, because it happened there, 29 articles in the Miami Herald, 4 in the Orlando Sun-Sentinel, and 39 articles from the AP, just Associated Press.
Sure.
So these were published in the same newspapers, all the sample newspapers and in newspapers all across the country. Within the sample of newspapers, each publication had various combinations of different types of stories. There were 5 types: feature, news, op-ed, sports, and other. So that's how they do. Atlanta had 43% of the articles they talk about. Out of the 133 articles in the sample, 38 of them, which is 28.6% of the articles, ran within the first week of the incident, which makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a lot. 22.6% of the articles ran within a month, and 24.1% of the articles ran between 1 and 3 months. 12% of the articles ran between 3 and 6 months, and 12% of the articles ran 6 months or more. Okay. So not a lot as it goes on. The double murder suicide was reported on within the initial week to 3 months of the incident. A lot, obviously. That's how it goes. Now, the spike in articles that ran between the 1 month and 3 month is due to the release of toxicology reports. That's why you had that 1 and 3 month in there. In 2000, they also wrote a story in the Miami Herald saying Nancy filed for divorce in May 2003, claiming alleged cruel treatment and saying that she dropped it and all that kind of shit. So basically, the Associated Press reported Benoit's father believes years of head trauma his son suffered while in the ring contributed to the killings. They examined his brain and they said he was all fucked up. Now, out of the 133 articles, only 14.3% mention concussions.
What?
14.3% of these articles mention concussions. If you're not good at math, that's 85.7 that don't say shit about concussions.
That is unreal.
So they found that regardless of the time frame, even after they knew the examination happened, concussions were rarely mentioned. For example, within 1 week of the incident, concussions were only mentioned 2 times. Like, hey, think it's his head? That's 5.3%. Within 1 month, they were only mentioned 2 times. In greater than 1 month and less than 3 month time frame, they were mentioned 7 times. The greater than 3 months, less than 6 month time frame, they were mentioned 5 times. And the greater than 6 month time frame, now they're down to 3 times. So that it came and went very quickly. Also, the painkillers that were always linked to all the drugs that they always have and everything like that. The WWE, by the way, they mentioned painkillers all the time, but didn't link them to wrestling at all. They didn't put those two things together in the media. So basically, it's like Vince McMahon sat down with every fucking reporter and said, okay, this is how we're going to play this because you're on my public relations team now.
You don't talk about this and you don't talk about this.
Yep. The WWE was mentioned in 89.5% of the articles written within 1 week of the incident, obviously. Mm-hmm. Within 1 month of the incident, however, it was only 40% of the stories that mentioned WWE. There was a slight increase to about half the stories after the toxicology report came out because that's steroids, but it never climbed back to that rate during the first week ever. It just kept going down.
That's unreal. It doesn't say it in every single article.
Yeah. Brain was mush, jacked up on testosterone, and then the rest of it comes after that. Vince McMahon, chairman and CEO at the time, was not prominent in coverage at all. They left him out like he skates like a motherfucker on this shit.
Unbelievable.
Out of 99 news articles, he was only mentioned in 12 of them.
Yeah.
Among these types of articles, he was mentioned most often in news articles. When the crime occurred, McMahon made statements on behalf of WWE, which drew the coverage. Later, once he stopped talking about it, no one else mentioned him. Only they quoted him.
Yeah.
Yep. That's fucking wild. So that's, by the end of it, the media basically accepted it's not WWE's fault, and, maybe his brain's mush. Who knows? He's probably just a crazy wrestler. There you go. That's what that is. Now, this Irv Muchnick had a little battle with Jerry McDevitt, the lawyer, the WWE lawyer. Okay, this is from the newspaper. This is fucking wild. He said the latest round came in December when the Pittsburgh City paper ran a piece on WWE's effort to combat steroids and head injuries. Muchnick slammed the story as a puff piece. McDevitt fired back in a letter to Muchnick, and here we go. Muchnick calls the WWE steroid policy a joke that gives special treatment to some wrestlers. Muchnick in the interview said, given the long and bad history of deaths in the industry, we can seriously question whether this company can regulate itself. So the WWE said they use an independently owned and operated lab and, slams on their specific stars, and the organization is bullshit and all that kind of thing. So on wrestlers' health, he said the concussion prevention program was a good first step, and he also said in the past, positive things they've done, they just take it away when no one's looking. Like the steroid policy.
Right.
Have you looked at WWE lately? Oh, my God.
They're enormous.
Now McDevitt says they argue that the WWE relies on the same concussion monitoring program as the National Football League. We put in place a protective program to eliminate as many concussions as possible, and it works about as well in both fucking places.
I've never seen a blue tent over the fucking ring.
Nope. Yeah, in the middle of the match when you hit your head on by accident on a fucking take a backdrop wrong. They talk about employment law because they talk about the WWE policy of defining them as independent contractors denying them health care, pensions, paid leave, all that shit. And they say, McDevitt says that the WWE covers medical bills for those hurt in the ring. Gee, thanks. And fulfills, quote, most of the tests used to define independent contractors.
Most of them.
Now,
yeah.
None of that's true. If you read what an independent contractor is, it's the opposite of this. An independent contractor is not supposed to be told where and when he can work.
Right.
He's supposed to be offered work, and then if he doesn't take it, he can work somewhere else, and that's not supposed to say, well, now you don't work here anymore.
Independent means works for themselves.
Yeah.
Non-compete means I work for you.
If someone comes over and paints your house, you can't go, now you can't paint any of my neighbors' houses.
Right.
That's not how it fucking works.
Right.
It's funny. If only there was what other industry does non-compete? What was that? Oh, yeah, comedy did that exact same motherfucking thing to us. You don't work for us. We're not going to pay you or anything. You'll only work sporadically at our clubs, but if you work at another club, then we can't hire you at all.
We'll never use you again.
Thanks, cunts. So anyway, on Chris Benoit, they said that Mushnick called it a cocktail of death from basically steroid abuse, CTE, everything else, and all that kind of shit. The McDevitt says in an interview that the doctors can't prove he examined Benoit's brain.
How do you not prove it?
It's a different brain, Jimmy. If they switched the brain out, that's his fucking excuse. We don't know that that's Benoit's brain. Where the fuck did they get a brain and say it's his then? What are you kidding me? Are you fucking this? This is what I'm saying. This shit right here is bullshit. And stop. If you ever hear when people question obvious shit for their own benefit, hold their feet to the fucking fire. When you hear politicians do that, anybody that does that, fuck you should be the answer. You fucking know better. Not, I'm going to argue with you about the facts. Fuck you, you fucking liar, is all you should say. Jesus Christ. He then says that CTE is real and a significant issue that people have to get their arms around. We're not anti-CTE, but the science has to be right. Guess what? It was. It was his fucking brain. Rather than deny that we caused it, because they can't do that, because he's not getting hit in the head with chairs at home usually, probably. They just say, wasn't his brain. That's all.
We're not anti-CTE. You're about to say some anti-CTE shit.
Fuck, man. Yeah, that's like, I'm not racist, right. But that's what they just said.
Yeah.
When asked to talk about each other, Muchnick says about McDevitt, quote, he's a great lawyer. If he wants to sue me, I look forward to it. After all, the truth is always a good defense.
Feels good, yeah.
Whereas McDevitt says, quote, he's a vicious man. That's all he said. Vicious man, because he's questioning whether you should let people with pudding brains get hit more in the head with fucking chairs.
Vicious man telling the truth.
Want to hear something awful that's pretty fucking gross? Hustler magazine.
What?
Published in 2007 after her death, published nude photos of Nancy from a test shoot she did when she was 20.
That's fucked, man.
They were 24-year-old pictures that they had of her that she took from way back then. They found them in their archives, and they put it out.
Wow.
And, the fans, her family took legal action against Hustler, and the appellate court ruled, quote, the photographs published by Flint neither relate to the incident of public concern conceptually, the murders, nor correspond with the time period to which Benoit was rendered against her will the subject of public scrutiny. So they own the pictures and they can publish them.
They want.
Yeah, they basically said that's like saying somebody made a shit movie with Julia Roberts in 1984, and then when she got real famous, they didn't put that on a video shelf with now her on the cover, even though she's like the 8th billed person, and it's starring Julia Roberts. Right. That's what they do, and that's what they just did. So it's pretty fucking disgusting, honestly.
Horrific.
Anyway, Chavo, like I said,
that's what Larry Flint does. He's a
oh yeah, I mean,
I give him all the credit in the world for being a guy that's successful, but he did it in a scummy way, and he's
I do love what he did. I do love when he pays for proof of hypocrisy.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing in the world. Oh, you don't like that? $100,000 for anybody that can fucking give me proof of these motherfuckers having affairs or paying for abortions, and he couldn't pay it out fast enough.
Right.
It came in like a
Just
fucking wave,
like
a wave. Now the lawsuit comes in here. Like we said, there's a lawsuit. Evidence shows the lawsuit that happens later. It says the lawyers on either side couldn't be specific as to what the heirs will inherit because evidence shows that Benoit was the last to die in the family home, okay? Which ordinarily would mean that his children, who are next of kin, would automatically be the legal heirs. But state law, known as the Slayer statute, says that Benoit is legally considered the first person to die because he did the killing, making the timing of the deaths of Nancy and Daniel crucial in determining who becomes the legal heir. So they had to figure out who died first. It says the Slayer statute is kind of a traditional legal principle that says if you cause someone's death, you shouldn't prosper from it. So, you can't be the one that whatever. So they said what happens here is it depends on the order of death. And if the order in which the two of them died is established, then Georgia law is going to be really clear about who inherits. We watched what the DA had said publicly, and they think Chris killed Nancy, then killed Daniel, based on decomposition. But we've come to learn that there are some facts that might indicate that's not exactly the way it happened. So, this is...
She may have been tied up and, not dead yet, and then he went and killed the son.
We don't know. My point is this, and by the way, 2020 Dark Side of the Ring, they did a very good, everything they do is very well, high quality. They did a very good thing at this. My point is, what the fuck was he doing for 2 days in that house, or a day and a half at least?
Yeah.
Walking around, was he thinking about, was this just like pumping yourself up to off yourself, or was this, can I get away with this?
Right.
Because, he's communicating with WWE. I'll be at this show. I'll be over here. Is he thinking, maybe if I tell them that, I'll tell them that? And in his mushed up fucking pudding brain, he didn't understand that wouldn't work. Then he realized it wouldn't work. Because if he's looking up ways to resurrect his son, his thinking is not clear, obviously. There's something wrong there, period. Because
he's a mess.
That's a fucking mess. And then he goes that long, basically to the point where he's like, I missed the pay-per-view. They're going to come here.
Right.
They're going to come here looking for me. I either have to kill myself or turn myself in. But there's no
He probably thought he could get away with it, or at least get to that show and maybe do it after that. But he certainly thought he was going to carry on life for a minute. His dismount was trash, obviously, but and then once it all set in, he probably sobered up for a minute and it all set in.
Was he planning on going to that pay-per-view?
I think he was.
Or was he just saying that to keep them at bay?
No.
Until he could
I
fucking...
think he was trying.
Because either way, that's what he would have said, whether he was just trying to keep them at bay or whatever. But I'm wondering what his thought process were. And at the same time, I don't know if it's even possible because, like we said, his fucking brain was not good.
Yeah.
And, he was a mess. And I'm sure... I don't even know whether he was lucid or not. It doesn't fucking matter because he killed these people and it's fucking terrible. And he's a piece of shit, a monstrous one.
I really think
it's just the way it is.
I think it all just came back and kept coming back to somebody's going to find them when you leave. And then what?
Yeah. Then what happens? That's what I mean. Then what happens? And then did he go through and then after a day feel guilty once his rage subsided? Did he go, oh my God, I killed my kids, I killed my wife, I killed my kid. What the fuck do I do? I'm terrible. I'm awful. How do I strangle myself in the most painful way possible? And because was that a form of doing squats? Was that his way of doing squats?
Maybe taking
what I mean?
Himself, making himself pay. I think he thought that was just going to be the end of it. Like it would be like a blink, like it would snap his neck and he wouldn't even feel, or you know what I mean? But also
he had to fucking just grit his teeth and get through that, man. Like that's, I feel like that was like doing 500 squats. I really feel like that was his version of atonement, which is not atonement. Fuck you.
There were two times the sun went around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That man slept and then woke up and with the reality. So he was sober, you know what I mean, at some point.
At some point, yeah. Did he watch TV? Like, what the fuck did he do in there? Like, it's bonkers. But either way, It's no one will ever know. That's the fucked up part about Chris Benoit. It's going to be all mysteries, but those are the facts, and you can kind of pick out what you think from there. And there's no one's right, so who the fuck knows? Someone's right. We'll never find out who. That's the thing.
Two people are entirely wrong. They are Chris Benoit
completely wrong,
and Vince McMahon.
And Vince McMahon. I feel like he's very wrong. If you like that show, please let the world know about it. Get on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, any app, platform, whatever the fuck it is, give us 5 stars and say something goddamn nice. It helps drive us up the charts. As well as you should head over to shutupandgivememurder.com to get your merchandise. First of all, tons of t-shirts and mugs and this and that, all sorts of shit. Sure. And you can get a shower curtain that says to fuck off. How great is that? So there's all that stuff in addition to tickets to live shows. Small Town Murder, our next live show is July 15th in New Orleans. Still tickets left for that. Atlanta the next night is sold out. And then Crime and Sports. And I got to tell you, just based on the way it sells and the way it goes, I can't imagine we're doing another Crime and Sports live show ever.
Yeah, it's probably
right?
not going to happen.
This Sacramento, that's it. This is the last Crime and Sports live show. We might do a virtual live at some point down the road next year or something, but in a room with us and doing the thing, and they're probably never going to happen again. Right. Get your tickets right now for that. Do that. Shutupandgivememurder.com. Also, follow us on social media. We are at Crime and Sports on Twitter and Facebook, at Small Town Murder on Instagram. And in addition to that, patreon.com/Crime and Sports is something that you certainly want to be a part of. You get all the bonus material. You're going to get 4 episodes a month. So you're going to get an extra episode every week. Anybody $5 or above, you get access to Crime and Sports bonus, Small Town Murder bonus. You're going to get it all. This week for Crime and Sports, what you're going to get is Billy Jack Haynes is a wrestler and a real fucking whack job. I mean, this guy there's a lot wrong up there. I've seen these long interviews with him where he rants and rages and rambles. He has an interview where he has a whole conspiracy theory that he's made up, that he has a briefcase full of papers and pictures and all his crazy shit.
He's not real?
Yeah. That's not. That he thinks that happened to Chris Benoit and his family. So he thinks it was a whole other thing going on, and Vince McMahon's involved in it. It's wild. So you need to listen to this shit for that. Billy Jack Haynes conspiracy theory. And then for Small Town Murder, we are going to talk about one of the worst people ever, a very upstanding, high-ranking member of the Canadian military who was pulling off a BTK scenario. He was doing horrible, but worse, he kidnapped that woman for so long. It's terrible. Anyway, he did terrible things. We're not going to go over the murders. We're going to talk about his interrogation.
It's so good.
And the mastery of this and how they got this guy and it's fucking amazing. I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to talk about all that. Patreon.com/Crime and Sports. Anybody $5 or above gets access to everything, and they get a shout out, which will happen right now, where we say all the wonderful people who love us so much. Speaking of that, Jimmy, please, please, please tell me the list of wonderful people whose brains are not like 85-year-olds with Alzheimer's. Please, please hit me with them now.
This week's executive producers are Brianna Vandemark, Rabinowitz. It's a law firm, James.
Yes.
Seymour Schmuckstein, Jordan Bennett.
Is that all in the family? Rabinowitz?
Maybe, I don't know.
Get me old man Rabinowitz. Why? He's the most Jewish. That's the joke.
There's a
from
lot of
all
them.
in the family. I think that's the thing.
Maybe.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Adam Hill, thank you, buddy. He donated twice, rather large. Appreciate you, Adam. Carol Braun, still around. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate you sticking with us, and always a pleasure to see your name. Peyton Meadows, Maud Findlay, Erwin Lopez. Erwin is a big Avs fan, and I don't know if you know, James, they just won the Stanley Cup this a couple weeks ago. Congratulations, Avs. Yeah.
They fucked it up before they were even off the ice.
Oh, yeah.
They messed it up.
Dropped the damn cup. Put a giant dent in the fucking thing. Did you see the bottom
Fucked it all up.
cave right?
Oh, yeah. They got to fix that shit every year, though. You know they got a cup guy.
It's pretty awesome. Happy Hour checking in Butler, PA. The Horrid 2R is around. Brittany,
Rossi.
Brittany Voyette. Frank, the South African birdwasher. Janice Hill. Molly Wazlowski, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Casey Handel, happy birthday. And also Peter Stone. Happy birthday.
To all of you.
More producers are Lauren Souza, Eric Conley, Jessica Jones, Gideon Townsend, Lisa Wright, Gage Kaufman, that's Barbara Babsey, Daryl Morissette, Alanis' kid, Clan McCauley, Dan Dreon, Nicole Dempsey, Megan McLaughlin. McKagan McLaughlin, Kelsey Van Horn, Aaron Ford, Jedi Guy, Pickety Stitch. Life is so creative, like sewing. Do you get it? That's what it is. Ed Becker, Greta with no last name, Kevin Shook, Janice Ferguson, Aaron Cook, Haley, one of 1 billion Americans. Is there 1 billion? There's not 1 billion, right?
No, about a third of that.
Yeah, we're close, though.
Yeah.
Keep going.
330.
Deb Mayfield, Cleet Stone, Sarah and DB Barrett, Zane 015, Amy Eisenhunt, Libby Hodson, Fiona Lark, Terrence P, Frank Dellatorre, Uncle Jeezy, Jenna Palmer, Sarah Pazik, DJ with no last name, Amy Holleran, Meg Mers, Bailey with no last name, Taylor Adamek, Christina Hively, Harley Dakota Norris in Louisiana, I believe. Candace with no last name. Chris Moore, CW with no last name. C and W, those are the first and last name initials.
Cool.
That's what it is. Angelina,
those things.
Angelina Colley, Keely Patton, Kurt Shitload of Dimes Smith, Jake Larson, Ryan Harrison.
Going to have to go back and get a shitload of dimes. Sorry.
Johnny Leffler, Joshua Wilbur, Evan Jape, Craig Boggs. Oh, boy. Patrick Hennessy, Amanda Swift, Spencer Parker, Houston Crosley, Scott Bingen, Kara Klinglesmith, Shannon Hancock, Foster the Llama, Justin W., Katie, Molenhoff, Nick Hazeltine, Tasha
They
Vogt.
said llama fans. That's nice.
Llamas are good animals.
Yeah, they're cool.
Liz Jones, Dory Dyer, Indigo, Aaron Barbie, Damian Lebec, MG Marzullo, Jan Bartholomew, Nancy Legos, Cassie Holiday, Aaron Bensall, Brian fucking, what is this? Bjorn Bonnie, Patty Tamble, Casey with no last name, Ayashuga, Ayo, I don't know, Brett Pigsley, Julia White, Marty Vorachuk, Jana Sweet, Cece Burns, Brianna with no last name, TJ Hughes, Cody with no last name, Sherry Ziegler, Kyle Jones, Jennifer Green, Simi Beebe, Gabby Sutton Vermeulen, Jack, Ochio Grosso, Andrea Elizabeth Karginen, Phaedra Corey, I think, Katie Conklin, Del Hayes, Cheer Up Bitch, I know that one, Kim Heshke, Sabrina Dunn, Mitchell Bollinger, Bobby Slingsby, Sam Mitchell, JC Ray. She's an RN. JC could be a dude. I don't know. I'm not going to assume. Martina Swaby,
thanks.
The Lindsay Chapone, Scott Bose, I think, Jane DeClerc, Patrick Carver, Hunter with no last name, Quinn Locke, Kelly Jordan, Michael Durr, Chris Ham, Noah Turnage, Natalie Stadelman, Mary Tim, Derek Levine, I think, Michelle Woff, Maria Dieter, Doll Mom Kimberly, Renzel, I think, Laura Scherbler, Schuber. Mary Claire Coyne, the names are brutal. Jenna McGarahan, Avon McMurgan, Starvin Marvin 420, Michelle Higginbottom, Brian Allen, Amy with no last name, Brandon with no last name, Sarah Powell's, Joy Jolly, that's what, Obi-Wan, Josiah Braden, Alexandra Barbu, Candy Kinney, Ellen Smolensky, Hugh Cox, and all of our patrons. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everybody, from the bottom of our hearts for all that you do for us.
Yeah.
Honestly, thank you so much for that. And we hope you're enjoying those Patreon episodes. We will keep more crazy shit coming throughout this. And thank you so much. If you want to follow us on social media, very easy to do. You can just go to shutupandgivememurder.com. Links all there. Or just Google search Crime and Sports Podcast Host, because I don't think there's any other ones.
There shouldn't be.
If there are, let us know. We'll go kick them in the dick. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us, and live from the Crime and Sports Studios, we will see you next week.
Bye.
If you like crime and sports, you can listen early and ad-free now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Prime members can listen early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Before you go, tell us about yourself by filling out a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.
Have you ever gotten a message out of the blue? Maybe you ignore them, or maybe you end up in conversation. Maybe they tell you about an amazing offer.
I can really show you how to make some money.
And maybe that gets you into a lot of trouble. But this isn't a story about people like you, the people receiving these messages. This is a story about the people behind the messages, on the other end of the line. Thousands of them, working in a micro-city built for scammers. From Wondery, the makers of Dr. Death and Kill List, comes Scam Factory, a new series about survival at the expense of others. Follow Scam Factory on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Scam Factory early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.